Okay. So, what do you want to share, Bree?
So I was sent a video by Bruce Gilbert, and it is on the sacred symbols. It's the significance of the sacred symbols of the Tabernacle of Moses.
Okay.
I think that's.
You have a link to that?
I sent it to you.
Oh.
The video right
Oh,
before.
the last one you said.
Right.
Okay. Because I'm going to put it in the comments. Okay.
Okay. So I tried to watch this, and I couldn't even get to the link several times. I had a lot of opposition getting there. Then my husband and I were watching it, and we only made it through to the 12th minute. And then the computer just shut itself completely off.
Okay.
So I didn't even get to finish it. But as I was looking at his diagram of the tabernacle, and personally, I like another model of the tabernacle that I've seen by Rob Skiba, that it's round.
I'm aware of that model. I don't believe it's a round model. I don't believe it. It's
well,
a lot of people use it to prove the flat Earth theory, and I don't believe the scriptures support.
Well, I believe there are two ways. I believe there are two ways. One, it was a tent, and everything that God does, it's a representation or symbolic of the earth and the heaven. And so I like the round.
I would
because it's not. Hear me out.
Okay.
Okay. It's not about flat earth versus what NASA lies to us about. But I do believe in that he is above us.
Sure. Yeah.
And that we are encased in something. Okay? That we are protected. And he says that the earth will be rolled as a scroll.
Sure. We probably have a different idea of the imagery that portrays, though, because I think that reference specifically has to do with the second coming, not
right.
Right. Anyways, and I believe, as you know, I believe in the polar configuration. There's going to be a planet coming, and when planets come together, the poles move. And when the poles move, it's gonna. When you look on the side, it's going to look like a scroll, because the Jews rolled the scroll. Have you seen a Torah scroll? When you look at the side, to me, it looks like two planets. But, anyways, there's multiple ways to look at that statement.
Okay, I will agree with you. Now, if we are in an enclosed situation, the same thing can happen. The planet can come and it can hit the earth. God can all of a sudden spread, just roll it up. Or from one end to the other, roll it up. And all of a sudden, everybody is seeing them. The poles can be shifted even on I don't believe in flat earth, but I believe that more of a dish shape.
A dish?
Yeah. It's like, it's
all right,
more paved.
I think the main point is
but it's covered.
So the main point is the shape of the earth, because we definitely disagree, and I mean, The dish Earth really does not make sense on how I cannot see the North Star. But anyways, that's not the main subject. Let's go to the main part of the subject you wanted
No,
to.
no, it isn't. So, I see all of the tribes and their colors and their cloth that they were to put for the tent. I've seen two models. I've seen the round one and I've seen the rectangle
Yeah, the
one.
rectangles.
So my mind is open, okay? The Lord hasn't told me either way.
Well,
There may be another way for all I know. I don't know. But I'm not stuck on anything.
so
I'm
I
just
believe the
saying,
rectangle myself, but it's not something I've studied a lot, I'll be honest.
okay, well, I've studied by looking at different they had engravings on rock, Egyptian.
So you were breaking up the
That promoted this.
sentence. You were.
I said I've studied the history of other cultures and their perspective of what they think, the earth looks like. And their drawing on rocks and stuff. And so I'm more open-minded that this is it. And so until he does, I can't say. Back to the tabernacle. Bruce uses the model of the rectangle.
Okay.
As I was looking to the north, the east, the south, the west, he shows the outer court.
We're gonna do one that works. Sorry.
That's okay. So there's an outer court and there's an inner court, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In the outer court, there are certain things, and I can't remember all of it, but and I didn't write it down. My mind.
That's fine. Just a little tidbit for you. When Nephi is going to go get the plates,
Mhm.
and after the angel came, right, and when they cast a lot, and then they went and did all their money, and then Nephi went on his own. The time when he went on his own, to me, I see patterns of the tabernacle / temple in that narrative. Anyways, I just thought I'd throw that in since we're talking about it.
Okay, that went over my head right now.
Well,
I told you I'm in the middle of
about the inner and outer courts, and anyways, to me, it's one of the deeper meanings of those passages. I don't know if I've talked about this with you before, but do you know of the concept called PaRDeS?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I see that there.
Okay, so we were talking about the outer court. Are you saying that it's the individual's journey alone?
Well,
I didn't
I'd
get
have to
what
go.
you're
It's been a
trying to say.
while, but one of it, when they came to Jerusalem, they couldn't go any further. So there was stages. I'd have to go look at the verses again because it's been a long time. So we could focus on what you're doing, and then we can go read that or talk about some other stuff.
Okay. All right. So anyway, there's the altar of incense. There's the showbread.
Mm-hmm.
There's the place where you wash your baptism, right?
Yep. Well, that was just for the priests. That wasn't just anybody's baptism. That was only the priests were baptized there. And it was just washings. And it was not just baptisms. From my understanding, and this is something I need to get more into, it was washings before they did their before they did the sacrifices.
Okay.
But I do believe it represents baptism, but I don't think they were actually immersed there. So I don't think it was an actual baptism. It was just some cleansings to do the sacrifices. But this is something I need
Well,
better understanding on.
from what I studied, they would get, like before the Jerusalem temple, they had a big basin, and they would have to get in it and completely immerse before they could go further in the outer court.
That could be, and this is something I need to study more. So I from my understanding,
Okay.
they don't, but like I said, I need to study it more. There's a lot of subjects I need to study more. To be honest.
Okay. Well, anyway, these were things that stood out. And then he put scriptures in the middle of, after he shows the picture, and then puts the scripture, and then he shows the tabernacle again. Like I said, we had a lot of opposition. So this is all that I was able to write down. John 1, 1 John. Is it John 1, Father? Is it 1 John? 1 John. Okay. John. I'm trying to find it. Or is it Matthew? I think it's Matthew 5.
Matthew
Anyway,
5, Sermon on the Mount. Is that what you want?
I don't know. Let me see.
Okay.
Ugh. No, that's not the one. Okay. So, where is Nicodemus? That was John. Let me turn to John. John 5. He's saying. Okay. That was one. Okay. That was one. That was that he pointed out. Okay. Nicodemus is John 3. Okay. So back to there was showbread, there was a budding staff, a staff of Aaron that budded.
That was in the Holy of Holies in the Ark.
Okay. So out
in the court.
Okay. Out in the outer is the washing, the showbread, the altar of incense.
No, the showbread and altar of incense is in the holies. It's not in the outer court.
Okay. Well,
in an altar.
What is in the outer court? I was trying to remember.
So I'm just going off of my vague memory because I haven't gone and watched the video or studied it recently, but the basin and an altar is in the outer court.
A basin and what? You broke up.
An altar where they did the actual sacrifices.
Okay.
But the showbread and the incense was in the tent. So in the holies. You can't hear me?
You're breaking up.
Let's see. Let me see if it's my internet or yours. TC, you gotta hold this.
I don't know. There's some home, and we're all on cable. We're all on the same internet company here.
Well, I'm just going to another site and it's working fine. So my guess is it's your internet right now, which is
Probably.
not always the case, but I think it's the case right now.
Yeah. Well, we have this internet that we had at the other place. And my neighbor works at the internet company.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody else in this apartment complex is on the same internet.
So it's shared. I guess a lot of people are getting online right now and maybe playing their games, right? Anyways.
They just got home. Yes.
Sure.
So anyway, back to the outer. All right. When I was seeing these things are placed in the north, the east, the south, the west. Okay. I immediately thought whatever was in the north, I don't know if it was the altar of innocence.
You
I
mean
wish I could remember.
within the actual tabernacle or?
Showbread. I think the showbread was in the south. I don't know. But immediately I got to thinking, N stands for being in tune with him.
Well,
East.
incense represents the prayers. In fact, the smoke going up is like our prayers going up to God.
So see, the altar of incense was placed in the north. So when we pray, we want to be in tune with him. That's the whole purpose of crying out to him.
Just
okay?
if you want an answer, you got to be in tune to hear it.
Right.
Hey, Bree, I'm going to pause 1 second, okay? One second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Okay. So the east, that was the entrance. And there was something placed on the east. Can't remember what it was, but it made me think, eye on him. We are to focus on him in all things. Okay.
Sure.
Then the south is the sun speaking to our spirit.
What? The sun speaking to our spirits? That's a...
Yes.
No, so...
God coming down as the Son, Jesus Christ. His
So you're not... Are you talking about
our spirit.
sun? Like that's in the sky and gives the earth light, or sun as the Son of God?
The Son of God.
Okay.
Stephen.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So the sun is speaking to our spirit.
Right.
Okay. We're receiving truth. Okay. Then the west is the walk after he had taught us. What?
How do you get that for the south?
The south, whatever was there was reminding me of, it was something to do with spirit.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
The spirit sanctifies us.
Okay.
The sun.
I lost you for like 15 seconds.
Okay. Because of Jesus coming down, doing his work, he made a way for us to be sanctified. Okay?
Sure. Yeah,
So, and state.
he made
So it was
possible
like
for us to
this S south was just, all these things were coming to my mind, is what I'm saying.
Okay, okay. You don't remember all the details. You just remember kind of the general feeling that you had.
Right. And the spiritual realm that he wants us to connect to. All right.
Okay.
Then the W, whatever was there, was reminding me he holds my hand. He walks with me. He wants us to walk in the truth that he has spoken to our spirit. Okay.
Okay.
So now, Bruce, he put the law of gospel is controlling our inner thoughts and feelings. Okay.
Okay.
I never looked at it that way. It was like, all right, because you don't want to judge unrighteously. You want to identify, the problem. You want to identify the behavior. You want to identify what the enemy is trying to do.
Yeah.
But you don't want to condemn, because the Lord, it says in John that God loved the world and he sent his son not to condemn us, right? But to save us, that we are saved through him, right?
Right.
Okay. So then something he said, and then it was like justification. Well, we could not be justified. We could not have that without Jesus.
So we're justified. We're actually justified by the law.
But
And Jesus
he
taught the law.
came,
We are sanctified by Jesus.
yes,
And
yes.
so I mean, they're slightly different from each other, but we're justified by the law. We're sanctified by the blood, or by Yeshua.
Okay, but he is the law giver, and
Correct.
he gives us his commandments that he wants us to walk in the gift that he's giving us, which is called present. That means the moment of now that you're
Mhm.
breathing in,
Sure.
right? Okay. So,
Aware of that English, um, what's the word I'm looking for? But connection, I guess, for lack of a better word.
okay. So, he goes on and he says that in Hebrew, I remember this one, Hebrew 10. Does that really stuck out?
You know what verse?
16. 16 through 22. And he says, "This is the covenant that I will make with them after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws into their hearts, and in their minds will I write them, and their sins and iniquities will I remember no more." So he's telling me to go to the verse 10 for some reason. So I'm
Okay.
going to go up here. Okay. He says, by the which we are sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once for all. And every priest standeth daily ministering and offering ofttimes the same sacrifice which can never take away sin. But this man, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins forever, sat down on the right hand of God, from henceforth expecting till his enemies be made his footstool. For by one offering he hath perfected forever them that are sanctified, whereof the Holy Ghost also is a witness to us. For after that he had said before, this is the covenant that I will make with them after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws into their hearts, and in their minds will I write them, and in their sins and iniquities, will I remember no more. Now, where remission of these is, there is no more offering for sin. Having therefore, brethren, boldness to enter into the holiest by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way, which he hath consecrated for us through the veil, that is to say, his flesh, and having an high priest over the house of God. Let us draw near with a true heart and full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water. Okay? So, after that, this is the new covenant. This is what we learn about in the Book of Mormon.
It's
okay?
renewed covenant. This is a sticking point for me, but it's renewed covenant in today's language. I mean, you can even look at new back in the 1828. It means renew, as in
right.
Modern.
He tried to do this. Okay, he tried to do this with the Israelites, but they got caught up with the rituals, the ordinances. Okay,
correct.
They got caught
I mean,
up.
that even happens
with,
even today. The Christians get
yes.
caught up in the rituals. But anyways, there.
Okay.
Yes,
So
there's the same problem. He always wanted it in our hearts and our mind. That is not anything new. I mean, it's in the Psalms. It's fairly clearly in the Book of Mormon, because Nephi got it from the Psalms and from Yahweh, right?
Right. Well, he was the one teaching Nephi.
Right. I agree on that. I'm just trying to make it clear that it's not a new covenant. It's a renewed covenant. It's the same covenant. It even has the same laws. He's offering.
It was the same purpose.
Yes. Okay.
It was the same invitation. It was the same association and relationship that he was offering the Israelites. But they never got it. And that's what we learned in Jacob, that they missed the mark. Not only did the Israelites miss the mark, but the Jews missed the mark. Now, today, we are missing
pretty much everybody
the
missed the mark. I mean,
that's what I'm trying to say.
It's not just the Israelites. It's People today miss the mark.
I just said that. You're
Yeah,
right.
I know. I'm just emphasizing it. It's just, for me, it's an annoyance that people just think that the Jews just don't know what they're talking about. They just criticize the Jews, and us Christians just know what we're talking about. And for the most part, they don't.
Well, the Jews today are fake Jews. They're not the real Jews.
Not all Jews, but a lot of Jews. And I know what you're referring to.
We have the Pharisees today.
Well, yes, today's Orthodox Jews are the Pharisees, which Jesus chewed out in the New
That's
Testament.
right.
I wouldn't necessarily call them fake Jews, but I do know that there are fake Jews. But
who set up Jerusalem?
I think the
Who
thing
is
that
over
matters
there?
more is that from these rocks, I'm quoting, not a direct quote, but I'm quoting Jesus, from these rocks, I will make children of Israel. And rocks, from these revelations, those who follow these revelations I give, I will make people children of Abraham.
Right, right.
So
But when you check the
doesn't really
history,
matter.
look, when you check the history, it wasn't God. Are you okay?
I swallowed wrong.
Yeah, it went down the wrong track.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Give me
Pause it.
a minute.
Pause it.
Okay.
As the history goes, far as the history goes, it's not God that directed the Jews to go over to Jerusalem. They still have not been gathered by the Lord. Okay? He does that gather.
A majority. There are Jews that are beginning to accept Yeshua as their savior.
Yeah.
But percentage-wise, it's a small percentage for sure. But
Exactly.
There's a couple issues here. But considering what Christians claim that Jesus taught, I don't blame the Jews for not believing in Yeshua, because
I know.
they know their Bible. They know it better than us. Oh, I have a visitor. Hold on 1 minute. Okay. So, actually, I can forget what I was saying. Can you remind me a little bit, Bree?
Okay. We were talking about covenant being renewed, right? And that individuals are missing mark, and that I was talking about how God is doing the gathering, not man, to the promise. To the
To the Jews. Yeah. So I think I was starting to say that I don't blame the Jews for not believing the Christians, because the Jews know their Bible.
Oh yeah, they know it better than the Christians.
Oh yeah, completely. I mean, the Jews have their own problems, but what the general Christian claims that Jesus taught is completely wrong. And the Jews know that. And so I don't blame the Jews for not believing what the Christians teach, because I'll tell you, I don't believe the Christians. I don't claim the title Christian anymore, and I haven't. I mean, I'm okay with it, but I'd rather not use it, because I know for the most part, Christians don't know their Bible. They don't know the scriptures. For the most part, they're pagans and they don't even know it, because they do all these pagan rituals and they don't even know it. And they don't care to find out, because they're so content to just hear their sermon from their preacher once a week, and that's all they do to worship God. and that's completely wrong.
Right.
And so when a Christian tries to convert a Jew, although the Jews have their own problems, they know what the Christians are saying is wrong. It's just wrong. And so I don't blame for the Jews for not believing in what the Christians say, because what the Christians say.
That's why the other books have to come forth to convince them that Jesus is the Christ.
Well, I think there's other issues on top of that. I think those other books will help, but there's other underlining issues in my mind. But I mean, they have the Book of Mormon, but they don't take it seriously. But I don't think LDSites take it seriously either, to be honest. I know since I left the church and read it, I see things a lot different than what is taught in the LDS church. A lot different. But if they would actually read the book and not consider what people teach that claim to believe in it, it's a whole different story. And I think they would believe it more if they just forgot what people claimed about it. But when you're busy with life and you have so many things you want to do already, why would you read a book from a person that recommends it that you know this person has no idea what they're talking about? You wouldn't, because you would just think the book doesn't know what it's talking about either, because the person who's suggesting you doesn't know it. So why would you think the book would be any better? And so I see somewhat of as a problem of who's recommending it and a problem of time. I mean, I have time issues, priority issues. I can't get to everything I want to do myself. I see how other people have that same problem. In fact, there's a verse from Lectures on Faith that I think applies. I don't think it's a stretch, but I'll read it real quick. Oh, you did very good. Very good. So Lectures on Faith 2, verse 56. This is kind of a favorite verse for me out of Lectures on Faith. But real quick, in summary, it says that they decided to look into the gospel more because of the person who was teaching it. So their personality, their credibility, who they are. That they saw that the person who was suggesting
that
it
excites
actually
the mind. Is that the one? That it excites the mind because of their testimony?
Right. So I'll read the verse. We have now clearly set forth how it is and how it was that God became an object of faith for rational beings, and also upon the foundation the testimony was based, which excited the inquiry and the diligent search of the ancient saints to seek after and obtaining a knowledge of the glory of God. And we have seen that it was human testimony, and human testimony only, that excited this inquiry. So it was because of your friend or someone you met on the street or whatever that made you
could relate to. You saw their mind and their heart being aligned with what they're teaching.
And in the first instance, their minds, it was the credence that they gave. Let me pause 1 second. Sorry, Bree. All right, let me get it back up. And we have seen as human testimony only that excited the inquiry. In the first instance to their minds, it was the credence that they gave to their testimonies. This toast. So if you're going out and saying one thing and doing another, why would?
That's what I had a problem with in church with the LDS presidents. Everybody was saying, "Oh, they're holy men," and we're like, then why are they living in the world and they are a part of the world and they are living in homes? They are not doing as the Lord said, where I will provide for you. Don't go, it says, go without purse, without script. I will take care of your clothing. I will take care of your
Oh yeah,
shelter.
the LDS 12
It
are
was
not
like, wait a minute. What you were coming out of your mouth is not what you're living.
Oh, the 12 of the LDS Church is not living the standard that's in the scriptures, including the D&C and the Book of Mormon. And you can't claim
Look at
translation on the last two, Book of Mormon and D&C. They're just completely ignoring it.
look at what is happening with the virus alone.
Oh,
They are telling the saints, wear the mask. Do that. They are not teaching the saints, hey, now is the time.
no.
You know those gifts that you got from the Lord, the Spirit, those gifts of the Spirit? This is the time for you to use them to edify, to heal, to bless one another. No, they're teaching, oh, you got to wear the mask. You don't want to spread the disease. They're spreading fear instead of spreading faith.
Oh yeah. They're completely going with the current agenda. I don't know.
I cannot see Paul telling his people, if there is a virus around, put your mask on. I
don't know if
honestly
you
cannot.
read my Beware of Good Friday post, but
Yes.
I
Yes.
call out Nelson for not using the supposed gifts that he claims to have.
Yeah.
There's
the opportunity.
Oh, and then on top of that, they call missionaries back who supposedly have the priesthood power to heal people, and the crisis, well, supposed crisis
away.
that needs people to heal them. They call them home. What a bunch of bullshit.
I was like, oh, what's going on here? You have an opportunity.
Oh, it's because they don't have what they claim, but we both know that.
I'm aware of it. I'm aware of it more and more.
It's just a whole nother example of why. I mean,
I'm
along with other traditions, the tent healings that happen, they're such lies. Sorry, but if they're really healing people, why aren't they going to the hospitals and healing people? And these preachers that are supposedly healing people are wearing these expensive clothes.
Right.
They're good.
Right.
It's all about the money.
And what did we learn? The last time that you and I had studied with the downfall of the church in the Mormon has always been of wearing costly apparel. It begins there.
They're robbing the poor, as in 2 Nephi 28. And I don't remember the exact verse, but it's around the 13 or so. But they're robbing the poor. I just read in Mosiah 11, let me get the verse, but it really stuck out to me this time. Here we go. Mosiah 11, 3-4. And he laid a tax of 1/5 the part of all they possessed, a 5th part of their gold, their silver, the 5th part of their ziph, and their copper, and their brass, and their iron, and the 5th part of their fatlings, and also the 5th part of all their grain. And this they did to support himself and his wives, and his concubines, and his priests, and their wives, and concubines. Thus he has changed the affairs of the kingdom.
And you know what? Today, there's been more than a fifth, because we're supposed to give a tithing or gift. We're supposed to give tithing of each paycheck, and it's supposed to be on the gross.
Yeah,
That's more than a
that
fifth.
verse is bringing out how King Noah is charging them on gross, like everything.
Yeah.
Even their other their said surplus incorrectly, but all their other assets. He's just charging them on everything that they have. And they didn't do
Yeah.
that to take care of the poor, but they did it to take care of themselves, which is what Brigham Young did and what the LDS Church currently is doing, because they're not taking care of the poor. They have $123 billion in cash. That's not counting all the other accounts that they have. This is just a cash account. And they currently are denying faithful members who pay tithing all their life help because they can't.
In Africa, they are requesting them pay tithe. God has told us we pay tithe. We have it.
Nelson.
Abraham only paid tithing annually because it was his surplus. It was because God had blessed him beyond his need.
Well, FYI, I know what you're referring to as JST Genesis 14, and in that case, he's paying off his surplus. But there are other times when Abraham paid tithes off of everything, but that was off the spoils of war. That's a different circumstance. So
that's different.
That's a little different. But the case that I think you're referring to is the one in JST Genesis 14, where he's talking about he only according to his surplus. So, but you said only. And that's not. Yeah, I'm just correcting. I'm being anal. It's just how I am.
Yeah.
I just try to be very careful. Okay. But Nelson, back to what I was saying, Nelson went around the world, and in Africa he said, though people are poor because they're not paying their tithing. That's bullshit.
No, I know.
35 brings out how the people from Alma 31 through 34, when they converted, they were poor. And how did the believers help them? In Alma 35, the believers gave them land to help them not be poor. They didn't say pay your tithing. They said, here, I'll give you land and I'll help you. Hold on 1 minute. Right. So Nelson is contradicting the Book of Mormon. Alma 35, the believers gave land to the poor to help them stop being poor. The LDS Church owns tons of land. In fact, they're a major landowner in Florida. I think 3%. I don't know. I can't remember. They should be giving that land to the poor, especially right now where they're having problems.
Can you picture Alma and Amulet going and giving a picture of themselves to the poor and saying, we brought you a gift?
Well, Nelson didn't actually do that to the poor. He did that
Nelson
to a
did that. Exactly. Whoa. Nelson did do that to the very family that he and his wife sat down on the only place that that family had to offer them. And he says, I brought you a gift.
Are you serious?
Pulls out a picture of the presidency. Oh,
are you serious? So if you have a link to that, I'd love to have that.
I would have to hunt.
Okay, well, if you could,
where it was, but it was on the world news. that they do for conference. And they were showing Nelson in Africa. And I was watching this member, and I was like, of all the gifts you could have given this sister, the shack that they were living in, and you bring them an image of yourself.
Yeah. It Nelson is
I
very
was just
prideful.
blown away.
Yeah. I
I
wonder
cried
if
because it was
Nelson
like
is
he
there.
had that opportunity to feed the poor
Yeah, but
instead
he
of
gave
them.
him a
I mean,
picture.
they could have brought out a huge feast at that conference, okay? And they could have had a great celebration, and they could have fed many. And
Uh,
I just cried. I was like, what is going on, Father?
so I don't know if you've read my No Flesh Above Another post, but I bring out how Nelson is very prideful and very me oriented. And
Well, look at the
how
great birthday that his celebration was.
how
All
much
that means.
poor could have been fed instead of having that birthday party. But
That's what I was looking at.
one of the
It was like,
contrasts that I brought out with Nelson in that post is how Nephi, when he did this mighty miracle, his brothers wanted to worship him. And he's like, no, don't worship me, worship God. But with Nelson
yeah,
giving out his picture, you know what he's saying is worship me. The
yes,
focus is me.
idolatry.
I'm the great one. He didn't give him a picture of Christ, of
No,
Jesus, Yeshua. He gave him a picture of him, of the arm of damn flesh.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what the focus is.
It was like, wow, wow. I was shocked. I was totally
Sadly, I'm
blown.
not shocked. I don't know what year you woke up on, but that
No, I did not expect that, Stephen.
uh,
I mean, this man has money. He has power. He has the ability.
oh, he lives off of tithing, off of the poor.
Yes.
So I'm not surprised he didn't tell the poor to, here, let me give you some money. You need to give it to me. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not surprised he said, give me more tithing. Because that's what he lives
Okay.
off of. He practices priestcraft, plain and simple. Sorry.
Yeah. So, um, we got off. We got off track. I am more concerned about the outer court. And I'm not going to do justice on this video, okay? I'm
I'll give
just
it a
not.
watch later, and I'll put a comment to the video. I mean, in the description of the video when I upload this, I'll put a link to the video that you
Yeah,
get.
because I didn't get to finish it, okay? And we had to stop it over and over because of our computer. But the outer court is symbolic of our flesh, okay?
Uh,
And
I could see
the inner court is symbolic of our spirit, of our spirit. And the spirit is the holy place, the spiritual mind, okay? If our mind is, and the environment around us is chaotic and noisy and distracting, then we are not going to be able to get in that holy place.
so
Okay.
I disagree with that statement. I do believe you mean well by it, but one example of why I would disagree with this is Alma
Okay.
1. Alma 1 talks about how the believers had tons of persecutions from the
Right.
non-believers. But yet, what did they have? They had God's peace. In fact, I don't remember the exact way that they put it, but they had some of the most peace that anyone has ever had.
Right.
And so,
But, okay, it's one thing that they could go home. They could have that quiet place. Then when they were working, they were persecuted.
well,
They
I
were
don't know.
troubled.
The record, Alma 1 does not actually say one way or the other if the believers, if they were part believing homes or not. And I don't think it matters, to be honest. It doesn't
Well,
matter
I
if
know
they're
my
part believing
circumstance.
house. Um,
I know my circumstance that I've not had a closet. I have had people stomping over me. I have had noise continually. And it has been most difficult to go to that holy place. Where when I had my place, I had no problem getting there. And then when I went out in the world, I was still in that holy place. So
sure.
you've
I,
got to have a place.
I, I, I don't know. Alma 32 brings out
Mhm.
how we can worship God all the time. You don't need a building or a specific place in Alma
No,
32.
I'm not saying you have to have a building
Well,
like a
it's not
church and
necessarily
it,
just a building, but I know my life, and it. Uh,
you have quiet.
I would.
You can put on your headphones.
Well, I just put
You
on my
can have
headset
music.
so that way I'm not being too noisy for the rest of the house. But
Right.
um, I believe that no matter what circumstance that we in, we can have God's peace. It's whether or not if what we do what is necessary or not, or have the right state of mind and doing the right things. Our peace is not dependent upon what is going around us. Our peace is dependent upon our relationship with Yahweh. That's what peace is dependent upon. Now, I
Okay.
will admit,
We're not talking about peace. We are talking about the holy place, the spiritual,
I
where we can receive even more knowledge from him.
I've received more knowledge from him, and neither you or I have been in the Holy of Holies. I mean, there isn't even a Holy of Holies on the earth right now.
No, there is a holy holies when we connect. Nephi connected with the Holy of
Right, that's
Holies.
my point, Bree. It is the relationship that we have with
Right,
God.
right. But he had to pull away. He wasn't in Jerusalem. He had to pull away from the noise.
Lehi connected uh,
Pull
with God
away.
in the noise.
He had
Jeremiah
to pull.
connected to God in the noise.
No, he
The
pulled
people in
away.
Alma connected to God in the noise.
They're usually in a wilderness. They're usually where, remember the rock and the pillar of fire?
I know the stories,
Moses
Bree.
goes to the
I,
mountain.
I'm bringing out some additional stories to help give some more insights. Lehi was not in the wilderness when he connected with the Lord, nor was Jeremiah.
Yeah, there
The
were
wilderness
places
has very much symbolic meaning to it. And I'm not trying to demean that, but I'm just saying that it's not necessary. You can connect with God with any circumstance that you are in. And that's what I'm saying.
Well, I will say that with the opposition all around me, I have not been able to.
For sure, it's harder. I agree. There's times when I have oppositions. I haven't, and it's completely harder. But what I'm saying is, it's possible. It is possible.
Okay.
'Cause I'm not perfect in it myself. I mean, I lapse even still now. But the closer we get to God, the less the circumstance around us will affect us. Christ was tested more than any of us could, and he did not succumb. And yet we do. It's because of us, our weaknesses.
Okay, but what did you say? He got early in the morning. He pulled himself away from everyone and he went in solitude. Did he not?
At times, but he wasn't always able to.
No, he wasn't always able to, but he had those moments that he pulled away. He even got in a boat to be by himself. And then the people said, "How did you get here?"
He actually was not in a, depending on which event you're thinking, but he didn't get in a boat. He just walked on the water because he sent his apostles away in a boat. If it's the time I'm
Yes,
thinking of, he didn't have a
but no,
boat.
I'm
He
thinking of
walked on the
another
water.
time.
Okay.
He fed the individuals and then he disappeared. He disappeared a lot of times to have one-on-one with his Father. What I am saying, to enter into the Holy of Holies, you have to find a place where there are no distractions. It is getting harder, okay? It is getting harder. I'm in my own apartment right now, and I've got bang, bang, bang music outside because of somebody in their car playing music. I've got an individual that is singing at the top of their lungs rap music as they are walking down our division. Okay? I'm trying to pray. I'm trying to have that quiet time. And what I've realized as the fire turns out in our trials, then his voice gets
Uh,
louder.
I lost you
That's what
for
I've
like 5
in my
seconds.
personal life.
Okay, well,
In
I
my
lost you for
personal
about
life,
5 seconds.
okay, in my personal life, I have noticed as the fire has been turned up in the trials, his voice has had to be louder.
I don't know what to say other
That's
than
when that
we disagree.
that's when he says, that's when he warns and says, "Don't," or he says, "Stop." Okay? I have been saved from car accidents because of it. I have been saved from somebody trying to hurt me. That's what I'm saying. As the fire turns up, if we have tried to connect in our mind and our heart, getting our emotions, our appetites, our passions, our desires, our intentions aligned with him and his agenda, in those fiery moments, his voice gets louder.
It gets easier to hear, that's for sure. I don't know about louder.
Well, depending on the urgency of the need, it has been loud.
Well,
Because I have been in dangerous situations.
I hear what you're saying. I see things differently.
And it may be because of your experiences.
Sure. I mean, you quote a famous, I don't know where it is in the Old Testament off the top of my head, but God doesn't speak in thunderings or lightnings, and those are pretty loud. He speaks in a soft, quiet voice. It's just a question of, are we paying attention?
Well, maybe I'm not paying attention then.
Well, I think you do pay attention, Bree, and I'm not trying to say that you're not. I have a different understanding on this point. God can be with us in all cases. It's just, do we allow it to happen or not? It's us that it's easier.
I think she's trying to.
No, he's just playing on the floor.
Okay.
It is definitely easier in some circumstances than others. I don't doubt that. And I've admitted that even in my own life. But there's other times in my life where he's connected with me when it was not peaceful also.
Right.
It's more about where we're at and who we're trying to pay attention in our mood and our circumstance and our heart than it is what's going on around us, because there's always going to be excuses. There's always going to be reasons not to.
Have you lived in situations where people are druggies and people steal and people murder?
I haven't lived your life, Bree. That is true. But do you think that God doesn't talk to people in those circumstances?
Oh, I
What brought you
does.
out? Yeah, he brought you out, right? You've told me some of your life.
Yeah.
He talked to you in that circumstance.
His voice was louder than theirs.
God talks abundantly to everyone, as stated in 3 Nephi 18. It's the question if we listen or not. God is doing everything that he can for every single soul to save them. The question is if people will accept it and listen to him. It's not a question if he's doing it or not, because he's doing it. The question is, will we listen?
Okay, what I am saying is, if your environment is louder, if the adversary's voice is louder, his voice gets louder. It is not the still small voice. That's when the angel sounds the trump. It's like
because even that imagery that you just tried to use to prove it is referring to something different than what you're talking about right now.
So. Oh, I understand that. But what I'm saying is that his guidance that I have received has become stronger and louder. That's the only way I know how to say it.
Sure, and I understand what you're saying. And my understanding, interpretation of that is that you're paying more attention. It's not that it's necessarily gotten louder. It's just you're paying more attention. But anyways.
No, maybe.
It's just, 3 Nephi 18 says God speaks to people abundantly. In fact, he speaks to you more abundantly when you choose to follow him. But how could it be more abundantly if it was not abundantly already? It's just people don't want to acknowledge it or follow, which goes along with what our hearts and our circumstances, what we're willing to do and wanting to listen. He's already, I mean, I'm sure he's talking more to me than I'm recognizing even now. I have my own problems that I'm working through. But I don't go around saying that he's not talking to me just because I don't hear him and I'm not recognizing it.
I'm not saying that he's not talking to me other times. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, you're just changing the volume's changed. And I'm saying the volume hasn't. I'm just saying you're paying more attention. Just for like, when I bought a Jeep Wrangler, my first Jeep Wrangler, I never saw them before. Does that mean that they weren't there? Or I just didn't notice it? I think when you start seeing something, you now start noticing it all over the place. It doesn't mean it wasn't there in the first place. It just means you're starting to notice it and pay attention to it.
Okay.
I mean, that's when you first recognize something, you start seeing it everywhere in a lot of cases. That doesn't mean it wasn't there. It just means you're just starting to recognize it.
Okay, I like that.
But anyways, I understand what you're saying. I just have a different understanding and look upon it. But I don't think it's a major issue because the intent that God's speaking to us is still both there. We just have a different understanding of him. Have always been doing it. God's work is not done. As in 2 Nephi 29, he's still trying to reach out to everyone all the time. He cares about every single person in the family of Adam. He's trying to save us all. Personally.
Okay, but and I've heard other stories too. I've had my personal experiences to go from, and I have heard individuals, like even my husband, he was saved from a horrible accident because he was going to pull out at a particular time in the lane, and he heard the voice, "Don't." And so he immediately pulled back, and a semi truck came and was already, speeding down the highway and slammed into someone else and slammed into someone else. And he ended up slamming into someone else, but he was not killed.
So are you saying that God cares for your husband more than the other person that the semi just ran into then?
No.
Well, why did God talk to your husband and not the person that the semi truck actually ran into?
I don't know. I'm not saying that.
Well, that's what you're implying, that he talked to your husband and not to the other guy.
What I'm saying is my husband heard the word very strongly.
I don't doubt that. But is it,
No.
why wouldn't the other person
I don't know if the other people were spoken to as well and they didn't hear.
Well, they didn't.
I don't know that.
They didn't act on.
I am hearing this experience recounted from my husband.
Sure, I just think
he acted on what he was given.
I mean, not knowing the person and considering that he died, we can't ask him, but I bet you God wants to save us all. I mean, there's going to be cases like this. We can't answer one way or the other of some of these tough questions.
No.
We can't interview everyone, for starters. Did they have the impression they just didn't listen to it? Who knows? I mean, we can't ask them. But
No, we can't.
I don't know what to tell you. Other than I believe God is talking to us abundantly all the time. It's just whether or not we choose to listen or not and act upon it. I will say that the more that we act on what God gives us, the more we will recognize the other things that God is telling us. And it's not because God doesn't like us, it's just we're more in tune. When we keep his commandments, we understand him more. I mean, keeping the commandments help us recognize his voice more. Because, anyways, it's a whole discussion.
I would agree with that.
I don't know, TC, because I might be staying up late. This leads into a difficult subject. I mean, when Alma and Amalek were out preaching, God let the wicked men go burn some wives and children.
And they were told to restrain.
Right.
They were told to hold back.
And part of the reason I think we're given in there is that so that God could condemn the wicked, because he can't just condemn them without them doing the act, and they did the act. I think in here that I think gets forgotten is that they're recent converts. I don't think they've completely understood to listen yet. I mean, I'm not there. I'm just throwing out a theory, something to think about. But someone who's been following God a long time would recognize warnings better than those who are just recent converts. Now, that doesn't explain everything, because there's Abinadi. We know Abinadi was more than just a recent convert.
Right.
He had a very close connection to God. But at the same time, he knew what was happening.
Yeah.
It was no mystery to him. In fact, he prophesied because of what he knew was coming in those events. So you can bring out stories on both sides of the issue. But I think on one thing that I'm bringing out here, those who really know the Lord and it happens to them, they're a lot more advanced and they're more prepared for it. In fact, Abinadi knew what was going to happen and he prophesied of it.
Yeah, he was well seasoned.
Yeah.
He had already practiced and walked in his faith before he even went on that mission.
Oh yeah, he had to be.
I see.
With what? Oh yeah, he was well versed in the scriptures and had internalized them into his own character and behavior long before that mission.
He understood that those ordinances, what they were pointing to, because he even taught about.
Right. But I mean, his face glue. His face. Okay. His face glowed with the glory of the Lord. Mm-hmm. It's not something that will just happen. He had a close relationship with Yahweh. So
yeah, he did.
But this gets into tricky circumstances. But I don't have all the answers. But I do believe that Yahweh is speaking to all men abundantly all the time, It's just a matter, are we
Right.
choosing to follow or not? I mean, the scriptures that themselves say that the God does not let us get in any circumstance that we can't handle. It's just we choose not to follow God's ways to let us out of the circumstances, and we choose rather to ignorance or whatever to
We
follow
yield,
Satan's ways, indulge Satan's
or we
ways.
yield to the overwhelmness or the circumstance.
Sure. I
To
mean,
our weakness.
in colleges they teach circumstantial ethics. I don't know if that's the exact term that they use for it, but I mean it's something along those lines, right? Rather than absolute, where the things of God are absolute. Joseph Smith has a quote that if a principle is not eternal, it's not from God. I believe that. And to me, it's the only thing that makes sense, because otherwise he's being a respecter of persons. Because to
Right.
require one thing from one person and something else from someone else is respecting someone, because you're having different requirements. They have to do different things.
I don't know if he's requiring it from everyone, but I do believe he's inviting everyone.
Well, he requires all to keep the commandments, and those who don't and don't repent are going to be judged.
There's the punishment.
So it's a requirement, period. Now, none of us have kept the law completely. We all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But
Right.
there's a difference between those who don't repent and those who do repent and strive to keep his commandments. And for striving and recognizing it's him that saves us, and not just thinking that keeping the law is going to save us, because it's not.
But it
We've broken it. We all have broken the law.
It says there are those that have not received the law. They're innocent. They're not required.
Well, this gets into sticky circumstances, but in Moroni 7, it says that God has given his spirit to all men.
Right.
Now, there are clear differences in men and women. I mean, men is a general term, like for adults. I would say for adults, because it is clear that children haven't completely gotten the law, and they're an exception to that. Right. But I do see in Genesis and Moroni 7 two examples that all men receive the Spirit of God.
All men. That's right.
Now, I do think that some of the fine details, maybe not everybody has received, but the generals, everybody has received. Oh, all men, because children's a different case, right? But in general, go ahead.
Okay. I am thinking of the huge amount of sex trafficking. I am thinking about these children that are ripped from homes very young age, and they are terrorized, and they are broken, and they are shattered, and they are abused. They are innocent. When they grow up, that there is another spirit that is placed in them.
So
they become robotic.
This is a tricky one, I will admit. There, like in King Noah, we get this, and some talkings about it later on. and even in the
You're
Lamanites.
breaking.
Sorry, with the Lamanites, we learned that that some of their, and this is where God has to step in, but
Yes.
the sins
You-
of the
yeah.
Lamanites, to some extent, are upon their fathers because of their false teachings and
Yes.
whatnot. And this is where
Yeah.
some of the finer details we'd have to get into, and I'm not God. But, and so there's a mixture, and this is a case-by-case place that we can't say from each person how much they were actually accountable for versus them just doing
Right.
something to stay alive. But
Right.
if they're accountable, if they're an adult, they know. I think as a child, they probably, well, not just think, they don't know. But as they grow up, they can see the problems of what they grew up in. And they just make a choice. But whether they made what choice they made and how and where they're at and how much of it's on their fathers versus
That's
them, I don't know. And that's going to be on a case by case basis. And I don't know them like God knows
that's
them.
right.
And so I can't say. But what
That's
I
right.
can say is that the scriptures teach that all men are given his spirit.
Yes. But so all men are given spirit, but he doesn't say what happens when there's abuse. What happens to that spirit? What happens to that individual to be able to hear
how
him?
is that? How are they not included in all men? All
It's
men.
yes,
All
they're
men.
given that.
All don't. Well,
But that's why there is mercy,
right.
because each case is different.
Well, this is goes. How much is this? Is where I can't answer. Some of it's on their fathers or those in charge of them, so on and so forth.
Yes,
And some of it is theirs. Now, how much in each case? I don't know. I really don't.
right. That's right.
But you can't tell me that someone who grows up in that circumstance does not know it's wrong. They see the effects and how it's bad.
No, no, not when you are taken and shut off from the world, complete world, and all you know is who is feeding you, who is around you non-stop.
And I'm just,
Okay.
I hear what you're
You,
saying, but
yeah.
God,
Until they're older.
child. There's a difference between a child and an adult.
Yes.
There's this age of
Yes.
accountability and how accountable. And that's a big point that I've been trying to point out here.
That's what I'm saying. It's men. It's women.
Yeah, it's adults.
It's not child.
Right. And maybe I didn't make it clear enough. When I said men, I tried to clarify it means adults, not childs.
Okay.
And maybe I wasn't clear enough on that there is a distinction between children. In fact, even in.
Well, you broke up several times on my side.
Oh, well, maybe part
So
of the reason I wasn't clear is because of the internet issues then.
it's frustrating. I was
Um,
trying to piece,
Sorry
the
about
message
that.
together the whole time.
I mean, in King Benjamin's speech.
That's why I'm frowning. When I frowned, it's like the is what I'm getting, and I'm like, okay,
the internet makes it so we can meet, but sometimes it's not perfect. That's for sure.
no.
Actually, I hope Anne wants to join. Hopefully, she hasn't been waiting too long. I just noticed.
Okay.
Unmute her. Hi, Anne. Hi, Anne. Hopefully you haven't been waiting too long. I just noticed that you were trying to join. I wish Zoom would make a noise when someone wants to join.
I
It's
think you have to start the thing first.
oh, I've been going for a while.
Oh, okay.
So I actually started a little before scheduled time, just trying to be prompt. Um, anyways.
I thought you were going to start at 9:30
Yeah,
Mountain
my
Time.
time. No, I maybe I wasn't clear. 9:30 Argentine time is 6:30 Mountain time.
Oh,
So in Facebook, and maybe this is a problem with Facebook. I don't know, but I put 9:30 in Facebook, but I thought Facebook converted that to your local time.
it might, but there might be like according to there might be a setting that I have to adjust or something.
Well, maybe I'll check time zone next time because Bree's saying it doesn't convert. So maybe I'm assuming something
I'm
that
told
doesn't happen.
7:30. It's like, okay.
Oh, well, I put in 9:30. So if you're told 7:30, it's converting the time. But
No, I just know
oh, you
because we've
just
done
know.
this before. Like, okay, 7:30, 7:30.
Okay. So maybe I'll have to check Facebook and see if there's a time zone setting. If not, maybe I should add it to the comments, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a little confusion on that. Sorry about that, Anne.
Not a problem.
I just assumed. That's what you get for assuming.
Yeah. You get a few
How are
dollars.
you, Matt?
Hopefully
Hi.
you weren't waiting too long. Because I try to watch for when people come in, but sometimes I don't notice things. In fact, I was even talking to Bree, and my son came in and hid under the table, and I didn't even notice it earlier because I was just so focused on Bree.
Not in, just went out.
Oh, man. So they're going to start doing corporate installed mandates for masks now.
As in his
Well,
businesses?
I read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, when all the grocery stores, and I mean all the grocery stores, you have to have a mask on if you want to do actual come in and shopping, starting tomorrow.
I heard
Now,
Walmart and Costco was like that, and Target, and I think Harmon's, if I remember.
Yeah, but Macy's and Solberg's, and so I'm like in the Twilla area, and there's like Lucky, Macy's, Solberg's, and Walmart, and every one of them is going to start a mask mandate on tomorrow. So,
Yeah. Is there any mom and pop shops you can go to, or?
no.
Well, I'll tell you this. I avoid wearing the mask myself as much as possible, but I don't think it's a moral issue. And so when I went to the doctor's the other day, I wore it for as little as possible as I could get away with.
I don't think it's necessary. I mean, there's going to be argument about whether or not it helps stop infection.
It doesn't.
And, maybe
and I
it does.
don't.
And if it does, maybe it's like wearing a condom. You'd be better just to stay home and not have sex,
I've seen that, and
It's not even good as a condom, okay?
It's nothing.
It doesn't even hold it in.
It's I've gone over the new studies, the old studies, and it's like
Have you listened to Fox News, Laura Ingraham?
No, I have not listened to her. Mostly listened to Shiva Ayurveda,
Okay.
and there's a few others, but
Well, she tells you what it does for you and what against you.
right.
Okay. And there's another one. If you send me your message, I will send you two of them. One, Bill Gates, and someone else has been sued by several governments for this, that they're not allowing, the lay people to know this information. It's by Robert Kennedy Jr.
Oh, well, he's with the
Lawyer. He's the
vaccine.
lawyer.
He's also is he in Congress? He's a representative, or was a representative.
I'm not aware of that.
He kind of sounds like he's got like something wrong with his throat. He almost sounds like, not quite Kermit, but he has like this pitch to his voice and a difficulty of talking.
No,
No.
not the one I'm thinking of. Anyway, I'm glad to send it to you.
If you put it in the chat, Bree,
I don't know how to do that.
or you can just put it on Facebook and I can put it in the chat.
Yeah.
Especially since you're referencing it, I want to.
Just hit home. There was, and then remember the doctor.
You're breaking up for me right now, Bree. I'm not.
And it's another doctor, Bill Gates' wicked agenda on population of the world.
So
And that's where I learned he's been sued.
He's done a lot to hurt Africans and stuff.
Oh,
and
no.
Indians.
He's a murderer.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
So
not just
here,
a
this.
murderer. He like, goes out and purposely sterilizes people.
Yeah, Bill. He's not a good person. In fact,
No.
some people have brought up in some of the videos where he's talking about the current situation where he's got books, and one title of the book that's in the video is How to Lie Using Statistics. Anyways.
Lovely.
Every 100 years, that they do a birth.
I personally avoid wearing the mask as much as possible. Apparently, where I'm at in Argentina right now, if you go in a building, it's law that you have to wear it, but you don't have to wear it outside. So I'll put it on. When I went to the doctor's, I put it on right at the door, and right at the door, I took it off. I think it's a joke. It doesn't do any good. It actually hampers our breathing.
Yeah,
but I also don't think it's a moral issue. I don't think it's the mark of the beast, like a lot of people are saying nowadays. I think people accepting the mask and its wisdom is prepping people to accept other things, such as the mark, so on and so forth. So I don't think it's good.
I'm wondering if the name, the mark, might have something to do with genetic code, and if so, then
Yeah,
Um,
they changed up the DNA or something.
I think the mark has to do with worship. In fact, the Catholic Church publicly says that the mark, mind you, of their authority is Sunday worship,
Yeah.
which will be forced upon
Well,
people.
that
It's on the
is true.
books right now. It's just not
That's happened in
enforced.
the past. I-
what, Bree? You're breaking up, hon.
Bree,
If
you
you
broke up.
Sorry, I said it's happened in the past. It happened in Daniel's day. It's going to happen in our day.
Yeah, the mark is about worship and doing it correctly. Because the church, the Catholic Church, has killed people because they wouldn't worship when they say that they need to, and they're going to do it again. In fact,
Oh, no
it's
doubt
in
about
the
that.
law
I
books
mean,
right now that it has to be on Sunday. It's just not enforced. Right.
I mean, I wouldn't call the mask the mark, like, you know, just like you. But it is, I think it is more of a religious thing than anything else. I've heard somebody compare it to secular Sharia. I'll be right back.
Sure. I guess I'll respond to her when she gets back. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more what we were talking about before Anne came, but she's back now. So I do think the masks and it's preparing people to accept more later on, because they're just seeing who's going to accept what they're being told to accept without thinking themselves, and
Did
digging
you
into the
see
issue.
that video? Since you haven't seen it yet.
No, I haven't seen the video yet. I got it.
The one of 2012, British Olympics Open Act. Steve sent that to her.
Yeah, I put it in the group or the
Yeah,
Zoom
I've
chat.
got it. queued up.
Robotic behavior.
Do
It
you want me
shows
to
a
go?
robotic behavior that everyone is under. This was in 2012.
Oh, that one. Oh, I didn't send that one. I can send that one.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Then the ones that I sent to you, the Fox, the health ambassador, how to respond to an individual when you're not wearing a mask, you're not wearing a mask, and send a doctor.
So here's, and the one from 2012 Olympics in London. And it's completely the masks. So they've had this plan for a long time, which I'm sure you agree with already. There's an agenda with it. And I've come across an article. Let me see if I can
Back
find
and
it.
watch the video that you sent.
Let me see, what did I, oh, cool. That, it connects the mask wearing with occult rituals. I
Yeah.
believe it's this article, and I think it did a very good job in it.
And it's taken away.
And so I think that's more what's going on. They're just trying to condition the people to start accepting the new leaders and the new reality by changing their senses and so on and so forth. The article gets into more details.
It also gets you backwards to read law. Think about that.
When I was a Mason, I didn't wear a mask on the mouth, but I did wear a covering on the eyes for part of the ritual. And so I definitely see the connection with changing the perception and what you can see and feel or perceive, changing your five senses some. But at least in what I experienced in the Blue Lodge, there was no mask going over the mouth or the nose. I also did the 32 degrees in Scottish Rite, and I don't remember anything on the mouth. I will be honest though, when you do degrees 4 through 32 in 2 days, it's hard to remember all the details.
I bet.
And especially since you don't participate in each one, you're just an observer, at least the way how they did mine, because there was a group of a lot of people going through it. But not everyone got to participate. And so they pick people to do the actual ritual where everybody else just watches on when you're doing the 4 through 32 in the 2 days. And I don't remember a mask in any of those. And I got called to be part of more than anybody else did for whatever reason. Who knows why? Especially since I don't think it's a good thing anymore, because they're trying to pull me in more, right? Anyways, but either way, I don't remember a mask in any of those ceremonies. But like I said, doing 4 through 32 in 2 days, it's hard to remember all the details.
Well, I think the mask is symbolic of shutting your mouth, shutting off speech.
But considering the degrees are in morals and dogma, and no one's brought out the mask for morals and dogma, which is based off the Scottish Rite, I don't believe a mask is in those ceremonies. I have seen connections with from the occult where the kneeling and in the occult, like the kneeling when the black guy was killed, that happened there, that I've seen some articles that are connected with the occult, which I tend to believe.
Where do you move the stuff?
I don't know the link to that article off the top of my head though, so I can't give it to you. Sorry. It's
Hi.
but anyways,
What?
so I do think there's occult connections to with what's going on. Basically is what I'm saying.
Behind the
And they're just doing it to the masses. And for the most part, the masses are accepting it. I don't accept it, but like I told you, I wore a mask when I went to the doctor's. He wouldn't see me if I wasn't wearing it, so I kind of had to. So to some degree, I played the game.
It's one of those things where it bothers me on a political level when corporations who I never voted for, who have control over my food supply, can tell me that I can either bend the knee or starve.
Yeah, I agree. And when I get back to the States, I will do my best to go to mom and pop shops or farmers markets to avoid that. But if push comes to shove and all I have is the big chains to go to, I'll be honest, I'll wear the mask, but it'll be coming on and off right at the door.
Well, good luck on that one, because Costco, oh my gosh. Okay. Apparently, Costco has been patrolling to make sure that once you go in, you keep it on.
Oh yeah, I'll wear it in the store.
But on the other hand, and I'm pretty sure this is true. My friend posted a picture that his friend took of himself and his 2 grandkids. They went to Costco. They were let in with an Ant-Man, an Iron Man, and a Batman mask. I kid you not.
Well, it's a mask, right?
It covered the nose. The Batman covered the nose, so I guess it was okay.
Well, maybe I might do something like that. But when I said at the door, I mean, when I'm in the building, I'll wear the mask.
I mean,
But as
it
soon as
just
I come
goes to
out,
show
I'm taking it off.
that if this mask is something that passes the policy, then they've admitted that there's nothing medical.
Oh
Right.
yeah. Well, I mean, just the fact that people aren't putting the masks into biodegradable hazard trash cans shows it's really not a.
Disposal. Yeah, they're not disposing of it properly. They're not
Right.
disposing of the gloves properly.
They're not disposing anything properly according to what they're claiming. But the thing is, most people don't think about that, and so they just accept it and go on with it. Like at the airport, where your water could be a bomb. Let me throw it into a trash can where there's other possible bombs that could go off. I mean, no one thinks. They just accept it without thinking. Are you crazy? You're going to throw something as a potential bomb? First of all, why would you throw something that's a potential bomb? And why would you throw it into something else that has other potential bombs? You're a fucking nut if you do that, or you're completely blind and just doing what you're told. Because if you really thought about it, you would see the problem with what you're being told to do. But people don't think. The problem is, as I see it, the elite do whatever they think they can get away with the masses. And then when the masses accept
Bree's
it,
leaving.
sorry, go ahead.
Bree just wrote in the chat that she was leaving, I think.
Oh, okay. Ciao, Bree.
Yeah.
You want to stay there?
Yeah.
Take care. Is everything okay, Bree?
Yeah, Josh came to get me, so I'm leaving.
Oh, okay. All right. Take care.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. So
I couldn't hear because the
I
internet's
guess my
so
question
bad.
is, what's the topic for today other than complaining about the inevitable forced stuff?
Well, the topic is whatever we want to talk about.
Okay.
So Moroni 6, and I can get the verse for you if you want, but one of the
Okay.
later verses, it basically says the meeting should be guided by the Spirit. So meaning no pre-planned
Gotcha.
discussion. And I'm listening to a book right now called Pagan Christianity. And in it, there's a chapter about talking about the meetings that they had before the Catholic Church took over. That's what they did. They just went off of what people wanted to talk about, what people wanted to share. There was no this pre-planned corporate Christianity that we're all used to today.
Gotcha.
They gave some references from the New Testament that I don't know off the top of my head, but ever since I've been doing this with Bree, it's all been based off of Moroni 6, one of the later verses. I can get it, but it's all by the Spirit, whether we pray or sing or supplicate. It's all based off the Spirit. I have no pre-planned meeting or topic. We can talk about whatever you want.
Oh, so do you have any winemaking recipes?
I can give you some resources on that later if you want.
I found one that I like that I've been using for a little while, but I'm certainly open to some experimentation.
Sure. I am not an expert on that yet.
We all got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I've done it before I moved to Argentina, or I don't know if move is the right word, but my visit to Argentina is probably a better word. And it didn't come out very well. I took a class from someone else who believed in the restorations, but also come to the realization that the LDS Church has its problems.
Yeah.
And they had me use frozen consecrate and bread yeast, and we cleaned the things to do the wine with something that actually stayed in the mix. So I could,
Oh no.
I don't remember what it was, but I could taste it when I actually did the wine.
It must have
And
tasted
so
like
the
dish soap or
wine
something.
was disgusting. I've
Oh.
done some research since then that what he had us do was not very good. And so when I get back to the States and settle down, I plan to do it again because I've studied it since then. And some of his suggestions weren't the best, but considering I didn't know anything, it was better than nothing. Oh,
Right.
maybe, right? Because I've heard
I
people who have
a lot of
taken part of that type of wine and actually discouraged them. So I don't know if it was better than nothing, actually.
Well, I do something similar to what you just described. It's like
Oh, okay.
basically I just go and buy a big bottle of grape juice and siphon a little bit off, add 2 cups of sugar, add some bread yeast that's already been mixed up, and let it sit in the container that I bought it in for 2 weeks.
Did you put a balloon on top? Because
Well,
you had us put a
the
balloon so
lid,
that way the air could expand.
the lid was partially loose.
Oh, yeah.
It was on to keep the contaminants out, but it was loose so it could let the gases out.
Well,
And
I don't know how that works though, to be honest. But anyways,
it
I think a
works.
balloon would. Okay, all right.
I mean, you want to have the gas escape. You
Right.
want to have.
I've read you should get some one-way valves, depending how serious you want to get into it, right? To help with that.
Well, you gotta wonder how. I mean, I know that they have worked everything into an absolute science, but
Well,
beyond
science
the
isn't
science,
absolute.
there's an art. There was an art that was developed before the science.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to do it at all. I mean, it was rotten juice. That's all it was.
Well, I wouldn't call it rotten. In fact,
Okay, not
from
rotten, but
my
fermented.
studies, the fermentation or the alcohol process actually is a preservation process, not a
Right.
rottening process. Because
I mean,
I just know
the
people
difference
claim
is
that
that one
you
is
shouldn't
life
drink
and one is death.
wine. Because I don't like the word rotten because I know people who want to say that we shouldn't be drinking wine with alcohol, say it's rotten, and it's not. It's a
It's
preservation
a
process.
fermentation. You're right. You're right. There
So
is
I might
a
be
distinct
being
difference.
anal, but I'm being anal because of circumstances and conversations I've had with
Yeah,
people and how they use that word. So, anyways, sorry.
you're right. You're right. I if the alcohol doesn't taste, if it tastes off, like it might be corrupt or contaminated.
You did something wrong. It's not the alcohol.
Yeah,
It's mine
it's
was
turpentine.
mine was the I think the worst part of when I had wine was from the cleaning materials that was still in the container
Oh,
that I was tasting. Not and I don't think grape juice from consecrate helped either. Frozen consecrate helped either. So it's,
well,
uh,
ultimately, it would be best to get it straight. One of the oh, it was I was talking with, I don't remember who I was talking with, but I think it was my friend. She was talking about a frost wine, with first frost wine, where you leave the grapes on the vine till the first frost. Then you harvest them, you make your juice, you make your wine.
mm,
There's something about the frost that does something to it does something to the grape sugars
So
That
I've never heard that, and I've actually listened to a couple of books on it, which I can share with you later.
Sure.
None of them have ever talked about the frost. In fact, the professionals who like this is their livelihood, they're who grow the grapes and then make the wine. They're testing the grapes on a regular basis to find out when the best time to take it. They don't wait for frost.
I know. They like I said, they develop the art and then they science the hell out of it. And it's
Sure.
like,
And then on
you
top
know,
of that,
there's
I would also add
mm,
that at Shavuot, which is the Feast of Pentecost, okay, the
mm,
for is more commonly known by, it was after the wine was harvested. Now, I think it's later than what most people think is a Pentecost happened, and I can give you an article that a couple articles that talk about that if you want. But it was after the wine or the grapes were harvested and started making into wine, and that was before frost. So depending if you want to go biblical or if you want to go what these professionals do, I don't see frost being involved in these two
it's
circumstances. Now, if someone has their particular taste, they want to do it that way, I think it's fine.
right. It's not that it was I mean, the whole frost grape, frost hitting the grapes thing is that's not necessarily what most winemakers would, most of the Mediterranean had mild, they didn't really deal with winter and stuff,
I think they did sometimes because Isaiah talks about snow.
Mm,
But I don't know how, I agree with you. I don't know how common it was, but I think they had it at times. But either way, the Israelites didn't wait to frost to
well, I don't think,
gather their grapes. It was
I mean,
before.
they snow in, I mean, when it snowed in Egypt, they were making a really big deal about that because it was like the first
Well,
time in like,
seasons have changed through the years, but
right. But
in
I
Acts
mean, there was a
2,
time when they had more water, more rainfall than the Amazon. But now it's like the snow is like rare once in a 30-year.
oh, sure. Like where I'm at right now in Argentina, when my wife was growing up, they got snow regularly in the winter. Now, they hardly ever do. And that's within
Wow.
a lifetime. Weather changes. I
Yeah.
mean, I think I've only seen it snow here once through all my visits, even before this visit that I'm here now. And it didn't stay a whole day. So weather changes for areas. I've seen it. My wife has seen it in her own lifetime. And I've seen
Right.
it in Salt Lake. The snow was much more when I was a kid in Salt Lake
Oh
than
my
it is now.
goodness. Yes. It was, I remember, I've been in Utah since I was 10 years old. And solidly, I've been in Utah since I was 10 years old. And it's the weather. I mean, it would used to snow easily 2 feet
Oh yeah. I
several times in a year. But, when I was growing up, but it's like now, I
oh,
mean, we don't even get anything close to that anymore.
I remember having to shovel the snow off of our roof so that way it wouldn't cave in. And then after shoveling it off, I would jump into the snow because it was so high. It was no concern.
Right.
I it's definitely the weather has changed. It's
Yes.
as simple as that. But Israelites, Acts 2 is an example of what I'm talking about with the Israelites. Acts 2 is Pentecost, is Shavuot, and he's talking about the new wine and saying it's sometime in the afternoon they haven't been drinking their new wine, and new wine is right after the harvest of the grapes. New wine is after, because it's new. It's literally new wine because it's right after they started the fermentation process.
Okay.
Um, it's not what a lot of people want to attribute to as grape juice. Grape juice wasn't possible until like mid 1800s when they learned to do the oh, sorry, I'm forgetting the
When they had, I mean, there
what's it
was
called?
grape juice, but it was like right out of the grape when they squished it, and that was
Yeah,
it. You know,
immediately.
that they started the fermentation process pretty much immediately.
Right. Okay. So I guess there was grape juice, but it was like the day or the week, right? Because after
Yeah,
that
I
it
mean,
was wine.
once it started fermenting, I mean, once they squished it, it started fermenting, and that was that. You
Yeah, because
know,
when they squished it, the white stuff on your grapes when you go to the grocery store is yeast.
right?
And when the yeast mix in, it starts doing its job.
And you know, the really sad thing is that you don't really find yeast on the grapes in the grocery store very
Yeah,
often. I mean,
last
well,
time I
okay,
bought grapes, I
maybe in
see the white stuff.
Argentina, but they sterilize the shit out of things here.
Yeah, that's true. But I remember, I mean, it wasn't that long ago I was in the States. I saw white on the grapes buying it from the store.
I I don't know, maybe you'd have to like buy a bunch just to let it age a
Oh,
little bit.
you need to go buy some and return and report, Bree. I mean, sorry, Ann. and,
Sure.
and tell us if there's still the white dust on the grapes in the grocery
I'll see
store.
what I can do. I don't know.
Last time I
I
bought
don't.
it, I remember there was still some in there. It's just the yeast.
Do you remember how long ago that was?
Oh, that I was in the States?
Yeah.
Um, maybe 3 years. I think it's been
It
about
was
3 years, so it hasn't been that
3
long.
years ago. Okay.
That's my quick estimate. I'd have to think hard to know for sure, but I think it's been about 3 years. It's a little, I think it's been about 2.5, actually, thinking about it a little more. But anyways, it hasn't been too long. But the last time I bought grapes in the grocery store, there's the white stuff on it still.
Right. Well,
That white stuff is yeast.
I'll take a look. We'll see. I mean, they do have grapes. I'll put on my, you know, and I'll
And
go and buy my grapes.
that yeast is enough to start the winemaking process. I mean, it may not be the best wine, but it's enough to make wine.
Right.
In fact, you know how in the New Testament it talks about how old wineskins can't hold new wine? It's because when you put new wine in, right, it's still fermenting and it's expanding. It needs to escape. I mean, there's multiple levels to this, but that is the reason old wineskins can't hold new wine, is because of that expanding. The old skins have been expanded. That you can only expand so far. And if they
Oh,
expanded more, they would burst. They literally would break. Anyways, um, the there's a lot of people who deny that Christ drank wine and that it's actually okay. And there's a lot of little things like this they just don't comprehend because they don't grow up with it. I mean, I didn't grow
I,
up with it. The only reason I know it is because I've studied it.
I've heard, oh, I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard some speculation that at the wedding that Jesus changed the water to wine was his wedding
No, it wasn't
or
his
his
wedding.
brother's wedding or something.
Um, I don't know what relationship there was to the wedding, but he went to it. Um, there's a recent Jesus series that shows it was a friend of Jesus's mother's. I don't know what the relationship is, and I don't know if there's any text that actually shows. I don't believe it was Jesus's wedding.
Okay.
But I do think it was a friend of the mother's, of Jesus's mother's, of Mary's, because Mary wouldn't ask him to take care of the problem. If it wasn't a friend of Mary's, why would she even care, right?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know why she would care if it was just a friend. I mean, I imagine at that point,
I think it
maybe
was a
it was
close
a family
friend.
member.
I think it was a close friend or maybe a family member. But either way, I do think it was someone important to marry. If it was Jesus's wedding, someone else would have been taking care of the problem, not Jesus, because he would be with the guests and being the bride, not taking care of the details. When you're married, you don't take care of the details at the wedding. Someone else is doing that because you're there with the guests.
I honestly don't know
Anyways, okay.
because I don't know the traditions, honestly.
For
So
sure. Well, I'm talking about just American traditions right now.
Oh, well,
But-
American traditions. Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, my wedding. It was such a blur and a
It's been a while.
anxiety attack.
Sure. But Jewish traditions are somewhat different, but
Right.
I would say that they're the same in this case, that they're not worried about the details as the ceremony or the reception is going on, is what this part could be likened to. It's a little different, but
Give me
yeah.
one sec. Yeah, could I?
Hi.
What's up?
But yeah, if wine was bad, why would Jesus turn water into wine at a wedding? It's not. It's fine. I mean, in the Book of Mormon.
It was grape juice.
Oh, cool. Yeah. You know what? Okay, so let's talk about. I know you're being funny, but let's talk about some of the verses that's in this account. I mean, I'm just going
Sure.
off of memory that
Okay.
the one guy that was in charge and making sure everything was happening behind the scenes was good. He stood up after he drank the wine that Jesus made and said, "This is the best wine I ever had." And normally people give the wine at first, the good wine, when people aren't drunk and they have their senses with them. But you save the best wine after everybody is drunk and less able to taste the wine for the last.
Yeah, wasn't he like personally affronted because they saved the best for last?
No, he said he was actually.
Oh, I know
giving it
that
as
he
a
didn't.
compliment.
They had run out, and so Jesus does the water to wine thing,
Uh-huh.
and then whoever you're talking about, I think he was like actually complaining because it's like how could you wait, and why did you wait to serve your best last? Why?
No,
You
it
know.
was someone else that was complaining, and I think that was actually it's not scriptural, but the part where he's saying that you save the best wine for last, that part is scriptural. But anyways, we'd have to go read the account if you really want to know for sure, because I'm going off of memory. But either way, I think the main point is, if you read the actual account, it's obvious it's alcoholic before and after. The only ones that would possibly deny that are those who are part of the, oh no, I'm forgetting the word, but those who are trying to make it so you can't drink wine, like the LDS Church and the, what's the name of the movement? It's escaping me right now.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways.
Have you seen okay, so the church has come out saying, we suggest that you wear masks. Members, please wear your masks.
Yeah.
And every time one of the more black sheep complain about it, they've decided to come up with this. It's a blog somebody wrote about how to tell when your revelation is going against authority.
I think I skimmed that, and I only skimmed it because it was a
I
piece
shouldn't
of
look
garbage.
I shouldn't be so
Well,
condescending when I say that. I mean, there are some, even my own relative posted that, and I'm like, oh my goodness, woman, but it's like, you know, I I went through it actually, and it's like, no, I didn't go through the actual blog, but I went to the actual letter, and
Huh?
I actually got, you know, I went through the letter and I read it, and I wrote a comment to it. So it wasn't my relative, but it was, even though my relative also posted it, but it was one of my acquaintances from the previous ward that I lived in, and she posted it. And I just was like, look, if this is good for you, great. If it's not, it's okay. And just please don't turn this into the Coke doctrine, please. And she's like, I would never. And it's like, yes, you are. When
Does she even
you
know what
are
the Coke doctor
actually,
is?
oh my gosh. I mean, I shouldn't have to explain the Coke doctrine to anybody who's lived in Utah. I mean, I remember in the 90s, it was like caffeine-free Coke was all the rage because, you know, that was safe because it wasn't against the word of wisdom.
Oh,
And
oh
and
man, that's a
my
discussion in itself, Anne.
and
You know much
my
history behind
sister-in-law,
that?
who's, I think she's fallen away from the church at this point, but my sister-in-law was just really kind of pissed at her neighbors because she couldn't go in and get she loves Pepsi, just regular Pepsi, you know, she loves
Mhm.
Pepsi. And it was like every time her neighbors would see her with her Pepsi, they would give her the dirty looks as if she were like drinking whiskey, you know, and it was like, oh my
Actually,
God.
I would argue that whiskey may be
Well,
debatable, but wine and beer is
yeah.
actually more healthy than Coke and
Well,
Pepsi. But
you're
anyway.
right. You're right. But you know, I mean, these people. I mean, it's like the taboo drink. You know,
Oh yeah,
you
I
just
know. I
yeah.
have friends that won't drink Coke or Pepsi simply because of what the
The,
church used to teach on it, which they stopped teaching it when the corporations asked them to stop teaching it, which is just shows that they're not inspired. The
well, and
history
I
shows
don't
that.
even know if it was the fact that they gave a lot of free reign to people, and you know that natural tendency to build the hedges around the fence.
Well, no, the reason the free reign on Coke and Pepsi came about is because the Coke and Pepsi came and talked to the leader at the time that initially said, don't drink it. They actually originally said, don't drink it. You can find quotes to that fact. But then the companies came and talked to them about it, and then they changed their mind. And that's why you can find quotes that say the opposite. It's because they have said both. The same president, I forget who it was, I could look it up and give you a link that there's a link, there's an article on Think Mormon that goes through this history pretty well, actually. And it just the
I'll have to
same.
look into it. You said that the site was called Think Mormon.
Yeah, if you want, here, let me get you the link.
Okay.
One moment. Oh, find it for you. I think Mormon has good and bad to it.
Right. I mean,
They're
I mean,
really
just like
good at showing
the,
how the church is wrong, but as in trying to actually really understand scriptures, they're bad. Don't trust Think Mormon on that. But if you want to see how the LDS Church has changed things, they're very good at that.
okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I honestly don't know how to interpret half of some things, but you know, it's like,
There you go.
uh,
That link has a good history about the word of wisdom and the Pepsi and Coke
I
issue
don't know why, but I'm
or
just
Coke
tired.
doctrine. But they bring out how they actually said, don't do this, but then the companies came and talked to them, and then they changed their mind because of the influence of men which the LDS Church says their leaders aren't influenced by men. But this is just another example of how they are.
Well, I've heard rumors that they're supposed to own a small percent of certain stocks. And it's like, well, maybe they didn't have to buy them. Maybe it was a donation.
I'm not completely following you on what you're trying to say.
So if I were Coke, I would go to a group of people and say, hey, if you quit bad mouthing, or maybe push some of my other products, how about I donate a small amount of stock to add to your portfolio
Oh,
that's tax-free?
sure. Well, it's bringing the money influence into it for sure. But I haven't come across that, but I wouldn't doubt it. I have come across that they own a good part of Coke or Pepsi. I forget which one it is.
Oh, I heard that it was actually around 1 or 2%, if at all, if that.
But I'm actually not as worried about that. My biggest concern in this is how they changed what they taught when they got talked to by these people. I mean, if it's from God, why are you changing it? If depending on what people say, it shouldn't. I mean, they used to teach that hot chocolate was against the word of wisdom, and on top of hot chocolate, they used to teach hot soup. Hot soup was against the word of wisdom.
Well, it technically, a hot drink,
Sure.
anything being too hot to put in your mouth,
Yeah,
really was against the word of wisdom until
well,
they took it
it
down.
still is. But the thing is, my problem is they didn't teach the principle of temperature. They said it was this or that, not the temperature. 'Cause I
So it's
agree
like
with you on the temperature.
coffee, tea, soup, cocoa.
Right. Joseph Smith drank tea. It's in his diary. But according to the
Well, he also drank beer.
Well, yeah.
He
Well,
ran a bar out of one of his hotels. That he did a
I
lot of
agree.
stuff.
Well, he it wasn't just a hotel, it was out of his house. I almost
Right.
kick him out if he wasn't going to stop. But I just brought up the tea one because it's related to the hot drinks. But
Right.
yes, he did beer too. It, there's so much that the LDS Church just holds back, which doesn't the only thing the LDS Church teaches is modified history and correlated history. They don't teach real history, untainted,
Okay, I need you
raw
to
history.
define correlated history. This is a new term for me.
Correlated history is where you only show anything that goes along with the current.
You mean curated history? Where they kind
Uh,
of cherry pick here, cherry pick there, cherry pick here,
that's what
cherry
I'm
pick there.
meaning. I would call it correlated, but I think whatever you want to call it, it's the cherry picking history.
Gotcha.
The reason I would say correlated is because that's how I've heard other people talk about it, and it's correlated with what is being taught, the current being taught in church right now. That's the only thing we'll show is what supports what's going on right now.
It's
cherry
so
picking.
interesting how history has been changed and
Oh,
erased.
history is written by the conqueror, which is what happened in the LDS Church. Brigham Young conquered the LDS Church, and in the official church history from Brigham Young's time, it says that Brigham Young corrected history, meaning he modified. It actually says that in the history of the church, documented history of the church. I think it's at the official title. Anyways, it actually says that Brigham Young corrected the history, meaning he modified it.
We like our air quotes, don't we?
Well,
I'm sorry. You do it, I do it. It's like air quotes.
Well, we both know he didn't correct it, right? He just flat out modified it. I mean, he would let Joseph
He cleaned
Smith.
his image up really well. Shall we say that?
Yes, and The book that Joseph Smith's mother put out on Joseph Smith, he wouldn't let go into Utah until he had it modified because it was teaching against what he was doing. It was showing the truth and exposing his lies and errors. And he didn't like that. So he wouldn't let it be in Utah. He
Hmm.
also didn't like the JST because it exposed his lies and his errors.
I'm going to actually have to take my earphones off because I need to get up.
Okay.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear it. I just have it on because I don't want to be too loud for where I'm at.
That's understandable. I just need to get up and stuff.
Sure. So so there was a group back a long time ago. Someone created a Facebook group called Uncorrelated Mormons. He got sick of it, so he let me run it for a while, and so which basically means uncherry picked, right? Just everything, not just the stuff that they teach you at church that makes the church
Connected,
look good.
yeah.
I don't run it anymore, but I had someone else become an admin before I left because I was just sick of that. I wanted to focus on other things, but it goes along with the correlated. I was bringing out how Uncorrelated Mormon Facebook group would talk about anything and everything. Well, it pretty much just died, though.
Oh, hey, speaking of um, history alterations, more stuff happened between the first time when I talked to you about how I was seeing I'll use the word correlation between Revelations and the events surrounding Corona.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and it was really interesting that the focus of the riots really started taking they just started going crazy about the statues. They wanted to remove the statues. And it talks about that it's like right in there about the Apollyon wave and the next more deadly wave.
Oh, is it?
It talks about how man refused to repent and destroy his idols of stone, of brass, of gold.
Oh, uh, I, I, I I see what you're saying,
No,
but
bronze, not brass,
I,
bronze.
I,
But the fact of if these are idols of stone, bronze, and gold, that's statues. And I'm not saying that we should destroy them or not, but it is interesting.
well, so idols are more than just statues. Those idols are things that you give sacrifices to and say, "Do this for me." A big difference between worshiping an idol and worshiping Yahweh is the relationship. Where idols, you just give something to hope that you give something to get something, and Yahweh, you want it's a relationship. You get to know each other. It's not just give for take or tit for tat. Where these statues that are may or may not get destroyed, right? People aren't bringing sacrifices to them to get something back. So
Right,
I
but
don't know if I would put it in
it's
that. But they are
I
statues.
mean they're not gods in our understanding of God's little g. And certainly they're not being sacrificed as what we understand as sacrifice, but they are put up as a way of honor, to honor, or to terrorize. Um, this is, according to different.
Sure, I can see where you're going, but I think the bigger issue, especially with Revelations, and because I see, I mean, we have to go read the verses to know for context, but without reading the verses that you're referring to, I would think the idols have to do more with false worship than it does with these statues. So without getting into the details, it's hard to say one way or the other.
If you give me a sec, I could
Sure,
go
sure.
ahead and. Um,
But I would say that I watched, I think it's called They Live. It's an old
mhm,
movie. I don't know if you know what I'm referring to.
mm-mm.
Let me see if I can get a link. Hold on then. But it's an old video. A lot of times you see a clip of it where they have the shades, where you look through the shades and it sees something different on the billboard, and then without the shades,
Oh,
something
oh
different.
yeah, I know what you're. I don't know what movie that was. I've never seen it, but I've seen the memes of it every once in a while.
Yeah, it's They Live. But I watched it recently. Cut the recommendation of some other people on Facebook, and there's parts of it that go pretty close to what's going on right now. Yeah.
Oh, hey, kiddo.
I'm gonna pause.
Okay.
All right. So you found the chapter and the verse?
Yeah, Revelations 9, verse 20.
Verse
And it
20.
says, "And the rest of men, which were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and of wood, which neither can see nor hear nor walk."
So I'm gonna go off of what I see on it, especially since they talk about that they did not repent. That they're talking not of these statues, but of their wicked ways. Um, and idols that have to do with doing evil, like Moloch, and things like that. So, in fact, along those lines, Planned Parenthood, Moloch wanted you to sacrifice your children to it, right? What is Planned Parenthood?
Well, certainly it's human trafficking on the highest level.
I
I
don't know if I
mean,
would
talk
call it
about
trafficking because it's murder.
well, you're trafficking in, it's not living, but you're trafficking human parts,
Oh, okay.
cells,
Sure, sure.
DNA.
The dead part. Yeah, I agree with
Yeah,
that part. I guess I just think trafficking, I think living more, but yes, they're selling the baby body parts,
yeah,
which are going into vaccines, right? Among
yeah.
other things.
So, there are identified aborted fetal tissue in probably a good chunk of a lot of the vaccines nowadays, but um, not all fetal tissue actually goes towards vaccines. A lot of it goes towards other things like facial scrubs.
I didn't know facial scrubs, but I sadly don't doubt it. I know that some of it goes into food. Some food,
Yeah,
anyways. It's
but like organs and, they'll do organ transplants and they'll use the flesh for like studies for like chemicals and diseases and all these other, you know, the experiments that are technically not supposed to happen on humans, they'll just do it to dead humans because, well, they're dead.
yeah, but how do they? Anyways, how does the experiments work if they're dead. Anyways, I don't want to go into that. But
Okay, not a
so,
problem.
but my point is that's more of an idol that I think that they have not repented of. I mean,
Well, I mean,
like
verse
even the issues with the Black Lives Matters, right? They're not going against
well,
Planned Parenthood, and Planned
Just
Parenthood.
really quick,
Oh, okay.
speaking of your Planned Parenthood, verse 21, neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts.
Yeah, I would say that fits into that also.
Yeah, probably more so.
Uh, I don't know about more so or not, but because Moloch, what did Moloch have his followers do? Well, the priests, anyways, because Moloch is made up, right? Um, they sacrificed their babies to Moloch, to an idol,
Yeah.
to a wood or stone idol, or whatever it was made out of, right?
You know, I actually don't know a lot about. I've heard about the Sardis sacrifices, and that's where the term sardonic smile comes from. But generally speaking, I really don't know a lot about the sacrifices of Moloch other than there was a lot of something about passing through a fire.
Uh,
So,
yeah, well, maybe not a fun subject, but it depends on which false gods you want to talk to and whatnot. But Moloch is famous for having its worshippers sacrifice the babies to it. And some temple priests, they would get harlots, have sex with the harlots, so that they would have babies, and then the babies 9 months later were then sacrificed to the false gods. In fact, Easter, you know why they're red eggs? Is because it's representative of the blood of the babies that were killed. That's where the red for Easter comes from. It's not Christ's blood. It's the
I've
blood of the
actually
baby.
never associated red with Easter, but I don't have any reason to doubt you.
I can give you, if you want to get into it, I can give you my resource page that gets in some of these things about Easter and other
Sure.
pagan holidays, which the Catholic Church has Christianized to make them holy, which they're not, right? um, it's not a fun subject. It's
If you would like to go to a more inspiring subject, we can certainly do that too.
sure. I don't mind getting into the details. It's just, it's not my favorite, and it's not,
Yeah,
I'm not an
and
expert on, but I know tidbits here and there. I know enough that I don't like the typical holidays, like Easter, Christmas, and Halloween. I don't like, and I avoid them as much as I can. Um, but yeah, I'd rather do a more spiritual subject than
sure.
that. But I do. We could just look at the Revelations, though. But
Oh, speaking of, Revelation 6
all right,
was
let's go
actually
look at that.
rather interesting. Gotta let it load first. One moment while I fix the screen here. So, chapter 3.
Oh, 3. Okay.
No, sorry, 6. Chapter 6, verse 2. And I saw, and now this is again back to Corona. I'm sorry. It's just
No, that's
on my
fine.
mind.
It's relevant right now, right? So that's fine.
Right. And I saw, and behold, a white horse. And he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him. And the reason I find this interesting was coronaviruses are called corona because of the crown-like nodules.
Sure.
And corona means crown. So,
Right. Yeah, but he went forth conquering and to conquer. I know some
right.
people think this white horse is this
So
represents Christ, but this one's not.
actually, okay, I know Wikipedia is not the expert, but when I've gone to Wikipedia and to a few other sources, a lot of people assume that the rider of the white horse represents plagues.
Okay. I know some people that think the rider of this white horse is Christ, and that's not the case.
Of course, I can't imagine Christ being a hunter, and the weapon that so this person has two items, a bow and a crown. And the thing about the bow is that it makes it what? Air, a projectile, therefore an air weapon.
I can see that. Sure.
And yeah.
Well, I mean, so I don't believe this, but just to help you understand some other people's perspective,
Sure.
because I don't believe this rider on this white horse is Christ. But bow, in other places in the scriptures, has reference to Torah. And who gave us the Torah? Christ. In fact, he was the perfect follower, because the bow and shooting the arrow is hitting the mark. The mark is Torah, his law. And so those who want to go down that line, they can find some justifications.
Are you talking about the straight and narrow path?
No, but that's related to it. But no, the bow and the arrow have to do with Torah, because it's the mark, the way that we need to be, or the seal, to use a better term in this analogy here, because there's the mark of the beast, or the mark or seal of God. They're both marks. It's just, generally speaking, we use slightly different words, but it's the same basic idea. But a bow and an arrow have to do with hitting the target, the mark, in the right spot.
And another interesting, I get what you're saying. I'm agreeing with what you're saying.
Oh, but I don't think that applies here. I'm just trying to help you understand why some people would try.
This is a potential. And another thing is that there's a reference in D&C. Don't ask me where. Please don't ask me where. But it's like, so, in Jesus's time, in the New Testament, he's like, you're going to be fishers of men. And then in the D&C, there is a reference to being hunters of men. The fishing's over, now you're hunters of men. Not necessarily to kill them, but as a way of
seeking them out.
Right.
Let's see if we can find that, because that one's a little curious to me, and I'm not a D&C expert.
And I think it kind of refers back to, so in some of the oldest archetypes of, hero
a
archetype.
Hunter can relate to the bow and arrow, like I was talking about.
Right.
Because I mean, the hunter has, well, depending on the pictures, the way you're looking at it, he pulls his bow, right, and hunts with the arch, and that goes into an archetype of the polar configuration. But
right.
there, and so I'd want to see the context a little more, because I think there's some justification for it. But I mean,
I think
DNC
it was
4 talks about how we should thrust in our sickle, which makes people like wheat. And I don't think it negates and says one or the other is no longer the case. It's just trying to give some imagery to help a particular person understand what he needs to do, which then we hopefully can learn from too, because it was recorded in scriptures.
right.
I don't think they're contradicting or saying something different. It's just using
No,
different imagery is how I would take it initially.
I mean, there's times when
So
the
in the index to the triple, I don't see hunter, but I also know that the index doesn't have all words. So let me get my program to search, which just searches everything. Oh no, there's a lot of stuff that's not in the index
I
or the
know.
topical guide.
I know.
I think some are just because they're men. In other cases, I think it was on purpose, to be honest.
Yeah, probably, because it's really hard to find some things. But
Sure. So I think it's a mixture.
the interesting thing is that like Nimrod. Now,
He was a hunter.
what? Yes, and he's also only I mostly use the King James Bible.
Sure, that's fine.
But one interesting thing that I found was that he's one of the first outside of the patriarchal line to be described as a man of God.
Where?
Oh my goodness.
I'm going to call you on that one.
You might have to call me on that one.
Well, I am. I'm doing it right now. Of course, which God? I could say that. Anyways. Oh, I want.
No, it was this way.
Oh, I'm going to tell it to do all. So there is no verse in the DNC that uses the word hunter.
Okay. What about hunt?
Okay, let me try that. So there's 3 verses in the DNC that use hunt. So when you're ready, I can give them to you and we can look at them. Oh, oops, I think I spelled something wrong. Never mind. Hold on, let me do that again. It would help if I spell things correctly. So let me start all over with hunter, sorry. Hey. Okay, so there's still no verse in the DNC that says hunter. Let me do hunt now that I spelled it correctly. At least I'm being honest, right? I'm not trying to cover my sins. And there's no verse in the DNC that says hunt. And
Oh, okay. I was wrong. Somewhat.
okay.
I don't know exactly how you would interpret this.
All right, well, what's the verse and let's look at it.
Genesis 10, verse 9. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord.
So before the Lord, well, first of all, it doesn't say he's a man of God.
No, you're
Um,
right. You're right. But it is interesting that usually when people are described as something, before the Lord, isn't that paragon stuff?
Say that one more time.
Isn't that paragon stuff?
Paragon. I don't know what you mean by paragon.
The purest example of?
Oh, purist. I don't know. Here. You know what I'll do? Let's go find out all here. Let me give you the verses from the other one first.
Sure.
Oh no, there were none. Hold on. Wait a minute. What did I last leave it? Yeah, there's no verse in the DNC that says hunt or hunter. So let me find all instances in the scriptures before the Lord. Because I'll just put in my little program. Oh, ooh. Some extra stuff that they like to put in. And let's look at some examples, because that's not something I'm familiar with, but let's find out. Ooh, there's a lot.
So what program do you use?
One that I made, but
Oh.
I'd give it out for free. I'll give you a link to it.
Yes, please. So what scriptures does it search? Does it like do the online, what database does it use?
It uses the LDS Gospel
Okay.
database. There are some chapters or sections in the DNC that I won't search, simply because I don't believe they're from God.
Okay.
But it searches most of them. In the link, it tells you which ones, and it's mostly the later ones that Brigham Young put in or modified, stuff like that. Like DNC 132, right? That's not from God through Joseph Smith. That's Brigham Young. There's a few of those. And so the ones I know of, I completely exclude. It's text-based, so it's not user-friendly. I want to make a more user-friendly one, but I just don't have the time. But I'm happy to help you learn how to use it.
Okay. You just signed up for a big thingy here. Where do I need to put it? Where do I click on? Or is it, do I just copy it to something?
Yeah, so you download it and it's a zip file and you unzip it somewhere. Right. You can run it from there. You have to have LDS Gospel Library on first, so the Gospel Library, because it won't download it, it'll just use it. I need to do an update, which I hope to do Monday or Tuesday, so I'll remind you on Wednesday to download it, because they changed how they store the text for the Book of Mormon. So if you download it right now, it'll search everything but the Book of Mormon, because they changed how they stored the text. It's searching it, but they changed some of the technical details on how they're storing the text.
Right.
So unless you have an old copy of the library, it won't search the Book of Mormon. I have an old copy, and so I'm searching it from there. Where I recently noticed I couldn't search the Book of Mormon, I looked into it. It's because they changed how they're storing the text, how they're doing the hyper markup, which you have no idea what that means. So I'll just leave it at that.
It's the linking that sends it from page to page, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of. But this has more to do with how they do the bold and mark the text where a verse starts and stuff like that. So I need to do an update to fix that with the current library. So I'll remind you when to go download it, and then I can help you
Okay.
learn how to use it.
Okay.
It still works for me because I saved an old version of their library. But there are quite a few cases of where that phrase is found before the Lord. I will send it to you in Messenger right now.
Okay.
And we can look at them or not. It's just there's a lot, so I don't know how to pick one out right off. A good
I
one,
guess just
example.
click, then click, then click, then click.
Well, there's
and-
a lot of them.
Yes.
I can't send it to you because the message is too long. Message me your email address and I'll email it to you.
Okay.
Because there's a lot. I can't give an answer because that's not a phrase that I have studied myself. So did you get the email?
I did.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if I got the email, but I did give you my email. Let me go check my email.
Oh, okay. Real quick, if I'm doing my math right, there's like
This seems like,
200 and
oh, that's way too many. But it seems like, at least from the first 5 or 6 that I've been reading, that before the Lord could be considered a statement of the Lord is the witness of, or as the witness of the Lord, this is a true fact. You know, it feels almost like a courtroom, like you're before the judge or something.
okay, I could see that. Because I'm just looking at a couple too. Though it's interesting, the one that you brought up is the first instance of it, right? The Genesis 9 or 10:9. Then there was 13:10. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld the plain of Jordan, and it was watered very well before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zor. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord. So meaning God saw it, right?
Right.
18:22, men turned their faces from thence and went toward Sodom, but Abraham stood yet before the Lord. God saw that Abraham didn't do the ways of Sodom and Gomorrah. So I don't think it's saying that they're good. It's just he's a witness. I mean,
Right.
the Book of Mormon even brings out how Nimrod was a good hunter.
Right.
So,
But he must have been a fantastic hunter
sure.
for the Lord to notice him.
Well, I think the Lord notices everybody, but he must have been. But the fact that this is what's being focused on about him, I think, brings out he was a very good hunter, right?
Right. And
This is what is talked about of him, not his other aspects.
right.
But yeah, there's a lot in here. There's like over 200. cases, and I don't want to look at all of them. But the couple that we looked at, I don't think it means that it was good, right? It's just
Okay.
he witnessed it. So I just, from what I know of Nimrod and how he started Babylon, right? At least in his later part of his years, he was not a good man. I do think he wasn't looking to do it initially, but then the people looked to him to be a leader, and then I think it evolved into that because he didn't stand up for what is right, but he stood up for, he just took it as it came to him, and he just did what was easy rather than standing up for what is right.
You know, the whole thing about doing the easy thing, that seems like such a misnomer sometimes. I mean, it's not to say that it is harder, you know, I mean, obviously it's not harder than the right, you know, but,
Well,
you know, a person who actually has an inkling of what they're doing and they're doing the wrong thing anyway, you know, I've been in that position before, and it's like dipping your soul in acid. It does not feel good.
I mean, I've done things when I knew better, and I felt a difference after, right? A loss of spirit or connection to God. But we do it, and some people will repent and then change their ways and try to do better next time, where others just like, yeah, I don't care. This is what I want, right?
Yeah.
I think Nimrod is an example of a person who deliberately made a decision that he wanted what he could get more than his relationship with God. In fact, I mean, even just the tower shows that he didn't trust God, because they did a tower so that way they couldn't get flooded again, but God promised that he wouldn't flood the whole world again. So they didn't take God for his word. They didn't believe God.
You're right.
I think there's more to it, why they
There,
did it, but that's one of the reasons they bring out in the account, right? That they did it so that God couldn't drown them again. But God already promised he wasn't going to do that again.
I think what happened was a necessary move. I mean, you know, I mean, referring to like the electric universe theory,
Okay.
it was something that had to be done, that you know, I mean, this planetary system is a system. It is a living system that we're part of. You know, I mean, living
Sure,
things are
but
part of us, and we're part of the
God
grander.
God directs it, though.
Oh, I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying.
Things there's I think there's in the world there's natural consequences, or a lot what science studies, possibly, right? Because I like the electric universe model much more than the standard model, which has tons of problems, right? But anyways, and there's times where God just steps in and causes something to happen, right? So that there's both in play here.
Well, I mean, if you go by what it has to say in the Book of Mormon, that God works with the rules, you know, he established the rules and he works with the rules and he doesn't break the rules, otherwise that undoes.
Well, what rules? Because God walked on water. I can't do that. God brought people back from the dead.
You know, it's one of those things where
And
I
God
understand the
intervenes.
rules.
God intervenes at times and other times he doesn't. You can see that in the Book of Mormon too.
It's one of those things where my understanding isn't his understanding. You know,
Right.
I mean, you're talking like way up here, and you have to get the microscope, you know.
Sure.
And just because I have an understanding of the rules doesn't mean that I understand the rules. And
Well, okay, along with those, God doesn't break the rules. I completely agree with that. But I think as with regards to the planet stream, the flood, did it have to happen? No, in my opinion. Did God know it's going to happen? Yeah. I mean, the snake bites in the wilderness with from Torah and in Exodus.
mhm,
God let it happen because the Israelites weren't listening to him. So he took away his protection. Until that point, God was protecting them against the elements, like the snakes. But then when they decided they weren't going to follow God and they're going to reject him, that's when he took away his protection. And that's when the snakes came.
well, you know,
And so that
I
shows that God intervenes. He protected them. In fact, in the
well,
Book of
right.
Mormon, it shows it teaches if we keep his commandments, he'll fight our battles. Is that just an idle saying or is that true? Personally, I believe that's true. He will fight for us if we keep his commandments.
I just don't have the vernacular right at the moment
Okay.
to say what I want to say. It's like right there behind my head, you know, it's like right there behind my eyes. I just can't articulate.
Sure. You
And,
want to try or
no,
okay. All right,
thank you
no,
though.
that's fine. I will be honest though, I see cases in the scriptures where sometimes he steps in and sometimes he doesn't.
Right. But I think humans, there is something to genetic memory and the experience of so many. I mean, when most of your relatives were like wiped from the face of the earth, you know,
Oh, I'm sure they were scared, and I'm sure that they felt like they had a good reason for
it's
doing what they did.
hard to trust when there's fear.
Oh, sure, sure. Especially someone who you can't see, right? On top of that.
Yeah, or comprehend. It's like, I mean, you know, I think the only person at that time was, I don't even know his name. It's there somewhere. It's in the history somewhere, but like the brother of Jared was like what? One of the few people who saw a you know, a pre-physical manifestation of, you know, the Lord. And
For sure. I mean, there's not even many people that see post-mortal, right? Resurrected
right.
Jesus. I haven't. Um, I
Well, I
think
don't
there's
think I
more
have.
people that I think there's more people that claim to see him that haven't than actually have. Well, I don't know. I might be exaggerating on that, but I think you get the point that there's tons of people that claim it, but when I look at some of the things that they say and teach, it shows that they haven't. There's a verse in, was it First John? I can find it if you want, but it basically says that if they're teaching against the commandments and they say that they've seen God, they're liars. And that was written after the resurrection. I think it's in First John. I can get it for you if you want it.
Nah, I
Okay.
actually would be, I'll be able to like find it myself.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to give it to you if you want. But back to the flood. I since you bring up the electronic universe, I do believe some of the water of the flood came from Saturn.
Right.
In fact, the Thunderbolts Project group has shown that the water on Earth and Saturn are much more similar than the mainstream science claim, even if I remember correctly, even to the fact that it's the same. And
Hmm.
if that's the case, wouldn't it mean it came from the same place, like from Saturn, like the flood? um, anyways, there. I don't think it all came from Saturn. I think some of it came from the Earth too. I think there's some
Right.
validity in that also, but I think it's some of both. Because
Right.
most people I hear it's either one or the other, not both. I think it's actually both.
Well, I would have no doubt that we had water in the first place,
Oh, I think there
and
was water here before
then
the flood.
when Saturn shut off, and had its own trauma,
In fact,
we gotta.
I think there was rain before the flood. Personally, I mean, I can't prove it, but I know
Well,
there's some people who think it didn't rain before, and to me that just
right.
doesn't make sense.
I happen to be in that camp.
Oh, okay.
And the reason I'm in that camp is because rainbows only show up with the rain. And
I don't think the rainbow first showed up after the flood. I think it was there before.
but it was like, I mean, how can this be I mean, this seems to be something that man has never seen before. And then all of a sudden, here is this promise. Here, this shall be a representation of a promise of this will never happen again.
So, but if you just play in the water or the river, you get it splashes, you can see rainbows.
Well, I mean, okay, there's possibly that, but the idea of rainbows being in the sky, the way it's written in the scripture just seems like it's so, wow, what's that? God's made a promise, you know. I could be wrong. It is his own opinion.
I can see that some. This gets in an area I haven't dug deep into, but although I don't always agree with Anthony Larson, I do think there's some possible merit to this. Anthony Larson did not think the bow that's in Genesis is the rainbow as we see now, that it could have been, Saturn has rings around it, and those have been
Right.
referred to a bow in the past.
Right.
There are some theories out there that there was rings around Earth at one point.
They've actually found remnants of rings. It's just that normally we can't see them.
Oh, I was not aware of that. So some people think the bow are those rings around the Earth. I don't know.
Well,
to be honest.
yeah. I mean, it happened so long ago. I mean, as far as I can tell, it's happened something in the neighborhood of about 13 to 15,000 years ago, and that's generations away from what.
Well, I don't think it was 13,000 years ago, but it was.
Oh, you're more of a young Earth proponent,
Yes,
aren't you?
I am.
Okay, I can respect that.
Sure. Either way, though, I don't think it's a
And
big deal either way.
I
But I am more of a young Earth, and to the fact, I think the Earth was actually 6 days. I mean, I'm not real worried about it, but that is kind of where I am, and I have various reasons for it. But
well, it says literally 6 days, so.
Well, that word in there, day can mean multiple things. Okay.
Right.
It can mean a period, and it can mean 1,000 years. So
right.
we'd have to go to the Hebrew, and I don't know this one off the top of my head, but we'd have to see, but there's reasons to believe various things on that. When you start actually digging into some of the details, there's a lot that gets left out in English translations.
Oh, tell me about it.
And so it's hard to say one way or sure on anything on English translations, especially with the Bible, right? Because it's translated by scholars, what we have, not by prophets.
Well, it's
like
not
the
just
Book of Mormon.
translated by scholars, but it's also translated by people who assume that
Yeah.
technology was Stone Age and people were obviously living in mud huts, and anything that's fantastic must be, I don't know, an acid trip. And so,
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of bad conceptions about it. In fact, I mean, one that I've studied some on because it's something I care about. Some people think because of using current translations of Genesis that the day starts at night. But when you read the Hebrew, it actually starts in the morning, and there's other cases in the Hebrew Bible that shows the morning. And I actually did an article on this from the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon says the day starts in the morning. I can give you the article for it if you want. It's
oh,
paying attention to some close details.
maybe a little later. I'm actually getting a little tired. I can do a little more talking, but I think I need to start winding it down.
Sure, that's fine. Well, I'll just give you the article and you can look at it later.
Okay.
It's primarily just talking about when the day starts. I do bring in
Also,
some side subjects on it, but
what's your YouTube channel that you've been posting these on?
sure, I'll give a link to you. 1 second.
I hope that I've been productive in any kind of contribution.
You know what? I wouldn't worry about it. It's things that are on your mind and you want to share and talk about. That's what matters.
Yeah.
And I don't have it structured like most churches, and including the LDS Church, having something pre-prepared on purpose. Actually, for one, Moroni 6. One of the later verses, and I can get it if you want, talks about it should be by the Spirit. I take that seriously. And also, as I mentioned, you may want to go listen to it because I talked about this with Bree a little bit, or was it with you? Something. But anyways, I'm listening to Pagan Christianity, and one of the chapters in there talks about how the early believers used to meet. It's nothing like it is today. Nothing. Yeah, all these churches claim biblical for it, and it's not biblical. They basically, to some degree, did what we're doing here, just talking about as things come up. That's what they did. That's what the scriptures show in the New Testament, which goes along with what the Book of Mormon says in Moroni 6. And the organization of the church in the actual scriptures, the New Testament and the D&C is way different than what is in the LDS Church. Way different.
Yeah.
I know missionaries, and I probably said it this when I was a missionary, that the church follows what's in the New Testament. It does not. It does not. On surface level, when you don't know a lot of the details, you may think it does. When you're studying correlated verses, sure, it looks like it. But when you look at the whole picture, it's not.
So I had heard that the office of bishop was supposed to be filled by men of the church until it could be handed back to the Levites.
Well, actually, the D&C gives something close to that, but those who have if there is no descendant of Aaron in the area, then someone in the Melchizedek priesthood can hold that. But if someone
Right.
is a line of Aaron, they have the right to it, and they should have it.
So I guess my question is, if they are a descendant of Aaron, do they in fact get it as a lifetime office or
Yes.
responsibility?
I would say yes. In fact, even if they don't have it, back in the day of Joseph Smith, it was until they got basically voted out. You can get voted out of office. It's not something. It's just you're in there for
How
7
do you
years.
get voted out of an office that you're assigned to?
Well, see, that's first of all, you're not back in Joseph Smith's day. You weren't just
Mhm.
your stake president did get revelation to say you're going to be bishop. That's not how it states it in the scriptures. They voted on who is the actual people voted who they wanted to be their bishop. It wasn't decided by the stake president and the 12. It's very different than what's going on now.
Okay.
And what the bishops are supposed to do is completely different than what they're currently doing. And I talk about that a lot in this article.
So
Right,
I
bishops are judges of Israel. Go read that article.
I was talking with my father,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I've told you about my father a little bit before.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, so he's an interesting guy, and I don't think you guys would see eye to eye on some things.
That's fine.
Other
It
things,
doesn't matter. It matters what's in the
I know.
history.
There's some things you guys could like perfectly do the tango with, and it would be like an amazing feat to observe. But then there's other things that'd be like, no,
That's fine.
toe stepping all the way. But I kind of wonder if maybe I should like hook you two up together to just let you to
Sure.
see what flows between the two of you.
If you want, bring him to one of these. If you want.
He was telling me one time that I guess he knew the guy, met the guy at this. There's a guy who was like he had the right to the high office of the Levites, and
Okay.
or something. It was something about the birthright. There was that placed him, and he'd
So
actually converted to Mormonism,
okay.
and then he asked his father for his birthright, and then proceeded to try to make a claim in the Mormon church.
Okay, so birthright from your father is different than
No, it was
being a bishop. But are
the
you
priest
saying
line.
his lineage?
So-
He wanted his lineage? Because
So he's Levite.
right. So he wanted some proof to show that he's a Levite, so he could be a bishop. Is that what you're saying?
And something like that.
Okay.
And his father gave it to him before so the father gave it to him before he found out that he had converted.
Oh, okay.
And
So if he knew he'd converted, he wouldn't have given it to him.
right.
Okay.
But the church denied him.
Oh, it doesn't surprise me. The church doesn't follow the D&C on tons of cases. But the D&C and the Book of Mormon are tokens to them just to go around bragging about, but they don't actually use it.
Well, they do to tell you not to drink coffee.
It doesn't say that. Where does it
I
say
know,
that?
I know. They're like, I know. It's like, you got to do the word of wisdom. Section 89, don't drink coffee.
But
And
it
then
doesn't
it's
say
like you
that.
open it up and it's like, where does it say not to drink coffee? Well, it's commandment. It's like,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, we
Okay.
both know this. It says to drink beer, and it says to use wine for the sacrament. They don't do that.
No.
It says
No.
to, and you know what it also says? It says to
Hmm.
eat meat sparingly all the time, and which goes against what some of the early LDS presidents said. You know, we shouldn't eat meat at all, which is a doctrine of demons. They don't follow the D&C 89. They just
Have
like to
you
claim they do.
have you ever heard of the Nephite Explorer?
Yeah,
I think I asked you that before.
yeah, I've
He's a
heard
different.
rumors that he's waking up, but he has a pretty good series about the word of wisdom. There's some things in
Yeah,
there that he says that I don't agree with, but I do share that his series on my word of wisdom resource page. I have some
right.
comments on those videos if you want to go look at them.
So did you get all 5 videos? I think he's
No,
like
he
up
has
to 5 or
8.
6.
He has 8.
Oh, yeah, he's been really blowing that up. It's like, damn.
I don't
I
agree with everything he says, but in
right.
general, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
In the first ones, he was still trying to make justifications for the LDS Church. I think some of the later ones, he stopped doing that, if I remember
yeah.
correctly.
And it was like that was when the whole marijuana thing
Yeah, I
was,
think that's when it started. It was the marijuana issue.
yeah. And
Um,
somebody, I don't remember who it was that posted the video onto like Anthony Larson's um
uh,
page.
sure,
But
the Facebook group.
yeah, and oh my gosh, so many people just blew up because it was like, how dare you, you know, actually interpret it the way it's supposed to. And I was like, whoa,
Oh,
you know. And you know, I don't know if did you
bumped heads with him. He doesn't like things that I say. I'll leave it at that.
yeah.
He doesn't like
Oh,
scriptures that I can bring out. He's just like, you just don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, well, what this
he
is this.
is devout in his own way, I'll say that. You know, he has his path that
He
he
has
is
his way. I would call it.
that he's dedicated to. And oh my goodness, you know, I remember the first time I ever had an interaction with him. So there was a time when the leaders of the church, had really embraced socialism and communist-ic
But you know
leanings
what?
and stuff.
The LDS teachings on consecration is communism, period.
Right.
We can get more into
And
that another time.
I posted a meme about, so Anthony had created a political Facebook
Okay.
group,
Oh, okay.
specifically political. And I posted that meme about um, LDS leaders having socialistic leanings.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he was mad.
Oh, it started
He
with Brigham
was,
Young. His law of consecration is
but
communism.
his was just so mad. And he came at me. He's like, ah.
Well, it's
And
because you were hurting his church his whole life, his whole being.
well,
Yeah.
and the thing is that um I mean, it was so bad that I actually left the group and I complained to Anthony about it. And
Anthony won't do anything because
I
he
know.
it was against the
He's a
church.
softie.
Even though he didn't believe in the church, he wasn't an apologist, but he favored the church so that way he'd get people to buy his stuff.
Well, I mean, we all have our different takes, you know,
Oh,
and
sure.
I
No,
can see where you're
he,
coming
no,
from, but
we were
I just,
close
but
friends. He did not believe in the LDS Church, even though publicly he claimed he did. He did not. He
well,
lied.
you
He
can't,
blatantly lied.
you can't skip into the electric universe and all the myths and stuff without being rattled. And
Well,
you
sure,
know,
but he
I'm
could
not
be
gonna,
honest about it when he wasn't.
but I'm not. Rather than getting into, you know, I can get into like the nitty gritty later, but just to continue with the story, it was like, you know, and after I complained to Anthony and left the group, I he said a few other things that kind of more of a. Anthony has always been so laid back as to be a reed, you
Yeah,
know.
he's
It's like he
mainly
just kind
doesn't
of
say anything too
he
political, right?
yeah,
Or
he's not really
controversial. He won't share his personal views. He'll just let
right.
people believe what they want.
He was a very piecemeal type of person. He was an
Uh,
but
I have a different opinion,
that's
but I had a different relationship with him. But
you know, I liked him. Don't get me wrong.
oh,
Okay.
in general, I liked him too, right?
Um,
I think
but
the reason he
I'm
did
just
some things was to get people to read his content.
but I got um it was a couple of years later, you know, probably what, it's been 2 years now. I realized that if it were other circumstances, um, I might actually like. And so I tossed him a friend request and he accepted it. And
Huh?
so it's he runs his own blogs and stuff,
Sure.
and he
There
certainly
was a time, but then when uh, I got a little more vocal, I guess you could say, or I went down the path that I'm on now, right? For
mhm,
understandings, we definitely diverged. He liked
right.
his traditions, and I want the truth. He doesn't want things to be unsettled.
Right. I tend, you know, I'm on my own path. I'm somewhere bumping in the middle. You know, I'm like here. I'm like here. I'm like going
Sure.
down. I don't know. I'm dizzy. Just, but you know, I find that it is useful for me to know you and know him and um, other people because I Well, I do strive for truth. I don't know if I'll ever actually, I will only have ever glimpses of it or a view here and there. I don't know if in this lifetime, I don't know if I would ever have even the capacity to hold the whole
Oh,
of the truth. You know what I
so
mean?
I don't think anybody in this life is going to have the whole truth. I don't right now. I'll tell you that. There's a lot of things I want to know that I don't know, and I work towards some. I work towards figuring out, and some it's just like I'd like to know, but I don't. With everything else that's more important to me, it's never going to happen. But there are some things that helped me wake up, and those, and some of them I know pretty well, like tithing. Tithing is the subject that woke me up, that really got me to start looking at things more than just the local leaders have problems and are doing things wrong, that the top leaders are doing things wrong. It was tithing that did that for me. And I've looked into many more subjects since then. There are some things I don't know, but there are some things I do know that I absolutely know that the top leaders in the LDS Church are contradicting truth. It's just as simple as that. And it's not just their
Yeah.
simple opinions. It's some deep,
Well,
like
even
tithing.
if it is just
Tithing, you don't tithe the poor. That's what was taught during Joseph Smith time. That's what it taught in JST Genesis 14. It's what's taught in the Book of Mormon, D&C 119, surplus. And D&C 119 says a standing law forever means never to change or go away. But the LDS Church changed it. And they say it'll go away with consecration. That goes against standing law forever.
what's this consecration? I mean, I've heard the term, and I'm sure I know of it. It's just my memory is like.
No, okay.
right
So
now.
the LDS Church, and this is false, but the LDS Church teaches the law of consecration is that you give everything to the church, not just your tithing, but
Oh,
everything.
the communist doctrine. Okay.
Yeah, the one that you make a covenant to keep in the temple, to give everything to the church.
Well, honestly, you kind of have to give everything to God because it's not really mine or yours in the
But
first place
still,
type of thing.
God doesn't want you to give everything to the church because
Right. I
you're
mean,
only supposed to give a tenth of your surplus. In fact,
right.
the scriptures teach that if you don't take care of your own house, you're worse than an infidel. And so if you did give tithing
Okay.
before taking care of your own, you're an infidel.
Okay. I can we stop right here at the moment?
Sorry. Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine. You said the word infidel. And the reason I'm like going infidel, okay, I've been looking into Islamic versions of end times. And they like the idea of infidel written across the forehead for some strange reason.
So I just gave the verse that says it to you. It's 1 Timothy 5:8. I didn't make it up.
Oh, what's an infidel?
Well, it's not good. Let's go get the dictionary definition to make sure I don't screw it up.
Okay.
It's not good. So I'm going to go to the 1828 dictionary.
Doesn't it mean to lack fidelity?
Uh,
Or is that a different spelling?
Unbelieving, disbelieving the inspiration of the scriptures, the divine institution of Christianity. The infidel writer is great enemy to society. Noun, one who disbelieves the inspiration of the scriptures and the divine origin of Christianity.
Okay, I'm going to look something up really quick.
Sure. There's
All right, so fidelity is faithfulness to a person, cause, or belief demonstrated by the continuing loyalty and support. Fidel means faithful.
and in is not. So I guess that makes sense with the definition I read in infidel.
Have you heard of proprietarianism? That's the term.
No. What is it?
It's a secular construct of government that is based upon, it claims to be based upon natural laws and reciprocity?
Okay, I know, maybe this is not an area I study a lot, but I know that there are some theories that the Constitution are based off of natural laws. How true it is, I don't know, because I do think at least some of the founding fathers were well versed in scriptures.
Mhm.
But I also can see how a lot of the laws that God gives us are natural laws, so to speak, right? Um, it- I mean, there's a lot of ways to talk about that. So in some degree, I agree that in some I don't, if that makes sense, because I think the God's government is a theocracy, to be honest. And I actually see the government that's in the Book of Mormon completely different than the government that we have here in the USA. Um, but that's another subject.
Yeah.
I just know a lot of LDItes are like, oh, we have a wonderful government. Well, the Constitution was inspired, not revelation. There's a difference between the two. A
Right.
lot of people don't want to look into that issue. And actually,
I honestly don't know the difference.
inspiration, at least the way I take it, and this is, we could go look at the words, but inspiration, I think, is something that you're kind of figuring out with yourself and God, but you don't actually hear God's voice telling it to you.
So I guess
Where
it's
I
the
think
difference is,
revelation is where you actually hear God's words. So inspiration is you're trying to figure something out and you feel that God's helping you, but you don't know exactly what's yours and what's God's, so to speak, if that makes sense. It's kind of
yeah, that does.
where revelation is a thus saith the Lord. It is his words, no questions, period.
I guess I tend to confuse it a little bit though, because when I've done actions that I wouldn't normally do on my own accord, um, I would tend to attribute that or describe that as being inspired.
I'm okay with that, with what I just said. Did you hear an actual voice from God, or was a thought
It
or a
feels
feeling?
it's more of like a driving feeling, kind of like go 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 go.
Sure, I could go with that.
I mean, I
For
don't know if that would
inspiration.
be. I mean, that I wouldn't. It feels a little more primal than
Well, I
actually
think it somewhat
revelation.
depends on the exact details, I guess, because I don't think inspiration is primal like nature for sure. In fact,
Right.
The natural man is an enmity to God, right? um,
Right.
so I think the big thing that I would say is unless you heard a voice like thus saith the Lord, or an angel came and gave you the words, I personally see it as more inspiration than I would say revelation. In fact, I think reading the scriptures and then using the scriptures, what you see there, to help us figure out what to do in lives is inspiration. Because it wasn't a specific thus saith the Lord to you that you just heard. It's something that you're trying to put together with God's help. And God kind of directed you along the way, but he didn't give you a specific thus saith the Lord. I do believe the founding fathers were inspired, but they didn't receive revelation. In fact, I mean, you probably know this more than other people because you look into things more. There was a lot of fighting in getting the Constitution to happen. That fighting's
Right.
that's not revelation. That's them trying to, some of it was just concessions to get, I'm like, okay, this is not a big deal. Sure, I'll give you that so you'll do this, right?
Right.
That's not
It's
revelation.
it was a lot of there was a lot of inspiration. There was a lot of infighting. There was a lot of
There was compromises. I mean, it, it, I like the Constitution more than what's going on in the world, in the United States right now, because we're not following the Constitution right now.
oh, for
Much
sure.
as we a lot of people would like to claim we are. We're not. I like it more than what's going on now, but I'd rather have the government that we have in like Mosiah 28. I mean 29. I mean, sorry, the last chapter of Mosiah.
No, isn't that the judges?
Yeah, they're
You
judges
know,
appointed by the people. We don't have that.
I honestly don't know. Um, I I wish I knew. It, I
Well,
so
part of
the
it.
in so the comparable government to Old Testament Bible, just before they got their kings. This was after
Yeah,
Moses,
the kings, they that was a bad
and
thing. God
before
just
the
let them do it
kings,
because they wanted it.
there was so after Moses, before the kings, there was that small space of time that they had the judges. And I don't know if the judges were assigned by the people or if they were
They were
assigned
assigned by
by.
the people, just like in the Book of Mormon. Um, so judges, if you vote in bad judges, there's going to be problems, right?
Right.
But the one thing that I like there that's much better than what's going on now, and I think you agree, the current politicians vote in laws that are against us that we don't know about. Where
Oh
in
yeah.
Mosiah 29, it was the people that did the laws and the judges enforced them.
Right.
And so it'd be better than what we have now. And I find it scriptural because that's actually how the scriptures talk about how it's supposed to be.
Right.
Um,
I don't know if we're ready for that yet. I
I
mean, it
think
would be nice.
if we had men of God being the judges and we followed God's law, I think you would be ready for it. I think you're just tainted by what you're seeing in the world today.
Well, you're right. I mean, it's hard to say what you can and can't handle when you don't have that experience to draw from and you only have speculation and you're not very good at self-assessment. I
Sure.
I'm
I
okay at self-assessment, but I I choose to err on the side of under than overestimate.
No, that's good. I think a part of it is probably because a lot of misconceptions that are about God's laws, personally. Um, Not that I got it all figured out, but like, here's one. Here, it's not a controversial subject. Well, maybe it depends on who you are. I don't think it is. But for example,
Anything is controversial to someone.
yeah, so I did throw that in. But for like, so a lot of the Hebrew rooters think you can't cook on the Sabbath. Okay.
Okay.
Um, and I know what scriptures they use to do that. But when I go look at the scriptures that they use to claim that, I don't see that. I don't see it all.
Well,
I think it's
you know,
fine to cook on the Sabbath, unlike what they're claiming.
it's yeah, I can see what you're saying. Um, Religious institutions and people have way too much of a tendency of using scripture that has absolutely no actual seeable bearing to a situation or a subject that they want to have commentary on and have it scripturally backed.
Sure.
I mean, one of
Yeah.
the things just absolutely drove me insane
Oh, I,
when I
I,
was doing,
the LDS Church does that so much.
but it's like I was doing the research to try to figure out what the standing was. You know, I wanted to have a personal understanding of what homosexuality was, you know, and as far as God is concerned. And you know, there's plenty of stuff in the Old Testament, plenty of stuff in the New Testament, not really much in the Book of Mormon, except where they like to quote about how the truth is hard. The truth
No,
is hard. And
I
it's like,
don't. The Book of Mormon doesn't talk about gays at all.
no.
Nothing.
And I really wish they wouldn't include that. I mean, if it doesn't, I mean, look, the thing that they're quoting is one of those things that could like apply to any truth. All truth
Oh yeah.
is hard and
Oh yeah.
sharp and painful.
It has
And
nothing to do with the actual current subject, other than you should
right,
believe me. If you don't believe me, you just don't
right.
believe truth. Those are
It's
lame.
and it's like you don't need to tie in your scriptures with every subject.
Well, yeah. I
You
mean,
know?
that's like anybody could use that against anybody who doesn't believe what they're saying.
Right.
It proves nothing. Stick to the
I know.
scriptures that deal with
You're
the
right.
subject.
Well, okay, they were sticking to the scripture, just not into the proper context. It's like, don't. So yeah,
No, I
just
agree. When I first started studying Torah, I was looking at the Orthodox laws, not knowing any better, because the guy that kind of helped me believe in it grew up Orthodox. But anyways, and I look at their interpretation of the scriptures, and I'm like,
Mhm.
how in the world did they get that law from this? It made no sense to me. And then I learned about the different types of Jews, and I'll be honest, for the most part, I don't trust Orthodox at all, because they're the
at all.
Pharisees.
Well,
These
you know,
Orthodox are the Pharisees that Jesus chewed out.
yeah. Oh, I tell you. Sorry, I am getting tired.
Okay, no, that's
It's
fine.
like it's like around midnight where I am now.
Well,
And you're
it's
probably what, 4 in the morning?
3:15.
Yeah, yeah. Go to bed. Go get some sleep.
Well, I stay up late for these. Anyways, but my main thing
I
is
Hey,
the
did
point.
you already do I'm sure you probably already did.
I
I
have,
mean,
but
if
I'll
you
do it
start,
again for you. Do you want it?
you what was I going to ask for? I
So,
didn't
were you
even
asking for sacrament?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll do it for you. Let me stop the recording and I'll do it for you. Okay?
Okay.
I'm happy to do it.
Let me go get the stuff.
Okay.